All right, thank you, everybody. It is now 4:30, and welcome to our ordinary meeting for the 25th of October 2023. I'll ask Councillor Mackie if she would like to make the acknowledgement of country. Page 3.
May I firstly acknowledge that the traditional owners of land in Western today. I humbly pay my respects to the people of the BOOROWA and NONOHOE'S Nation, the past, present, and emerging.
Thank you, Councillor. Housekeeping: if you're asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. This council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming and council meeting policy. We don't have anybody present in the gallery today. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The chair and or the general manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. We don't have anybody, as I said before, in the public forum. And Councillor Armstrong, I'll invite you if you would make the statement of ethical obligations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors are reminded that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interest of the people of Hilltops local government area and the Hilltops Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of their ability and judgment as per their oath or affirmation of office made under section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr. General Manager, can I have a point of clarification, please, on that matter?
Yes, Councillor.
It stated where before that the statement of ethical obligations was mandatory, and in our papers it's all got Code of Meeting Practice section 3.22. Well, that's not correct. Not correct at all.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the section of the Code of Meeting Practice at 3.22 say business papers for all ordinary meetings and committees must contain a statement reminding councillors of their oath or affirmation of office made under section 2.
What point is that, Mr. General Manager?
3.22 on page 7 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Part 3.22. It's a statement of ethical obligations.
The older one mightn't have it in.
I must have an outdated Code of Meeting Practice that we adopted, have I?
The Code of this is the approval date of the 22nd of June 2022.
I stand corrected, thank you.
Thank you,
The
Councillor.
Code of Meeting Practice is out of, because in local government New South Wales, it's 3.23.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
And it was never in our, and I can't remember voting the new Code of Meeting Practice in, so my memory's slipping. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome, Councillor Dodd. I don't have any apologies. We're all applications for leave.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have heard that Councillor Flannery is just running late and he's on his way.
Okay, thank you. If we turn to sympathy expressions, I'll ask that staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of Margaret Canyu, Pamela Holding, Faye Sheether, Gary Ward, Ruth Mackin, Beverly Hall, John Kelly, Russell Foley, Joan Giuliano, Lindsay Rogers, Bede Morrissey, Mary Schaefer, Kevin Bristow, Peggy Summerfield, Frederick Barney, Rodney Corcoran, Darryl Dorr, Ivan Fitzgerald, Olive Ambrose, Joan Gattich, and Joyce Lamb. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 6.1, confirmation minutes for Hilltops Council Ordinary Meeting, September 27th, 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Piper, and a seconder, Councillor Hewson. All those in favour? Thank you. We do have another set of minutes, confirmation minutes for the Hilltops Council Extraordinary Meeting on the 9th of October 2023. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and seconder, Councillor Piper. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll move 6.3. Thank you. Just let me find my page. Here we go. 6.3. This is confirmation of minutes for Hilltops Extraordinary Meeting on the 16th of October. Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Those in favour? Thank you. Next, we will move to okay, disclosure of interest. Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Piper, you have a query?
I think the last topic we were discussing tonight, I still have the same disclosure of interest as I did last week.
I think so, councillor.
Do I have
And
to
so
read again, or can I-
you will declare a non-pecuniary significant interest in report 15.5-23/285, edition of lot 1, section 50 DP 758139 into reserve 54441 for a recreation reserve, where you will stay for the debate, for the discussion, but you will leave for the vote.
That'd be good if I could.
Thank you, councillor. That's
Okay.
so recorded.
Thank you. Now, next we have a mayoral minute. Councillor Flannery isn't here at the moment. But
I'm happy to move his motion for him, Madam Mayor.
thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Take the back that you said a mayoral minute. I didn't see the mayoral minute, sorry.
No, so through you, Madam Mayor, you don't need a second for the movement of the motion.
I don't need one. As you can see, it's before you. Councillor Flannery just asked that this motion could be put forward to the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. And the only way that we could do that was by mayoral minute, so that we could bring it to council for discussion.
So just to fill out that, as you're aware, in the August meeting, we brought forward for discussion of potential items for the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. At that meeting, one was debated and lost. The request was for any motions that would like to be put forward to be debated by this council as to whether they would be put forward to that conference, was to be put forward as a notice of motion for the September meeting, given that the 15th of October was when the portal closed. Through discussions with Local Government New South Wales, late motions can be given to Local Government New South Wales right up to 24 hours before the conference, with a duly resolved resolution of the respective council. However, it is up to then the panel to decide whether or not that motion is added. If it's prior to the 15th of October and it meets the criteria, it does, but is now at the discretion. Having said that, for expediency, the best way to bring this forward was through a mayoral motion from a procedural point of view, and which the Mayor has agreed to. And now pass back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. These motions have been put forward by Councillor Flannery, so I will defer to Councillor Flannery. If you'd like to talk to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for agreeing to put them up as a mayoral minute. The first motion relates to weed control. There was the reason for the late motion is the weeds meeting only met last week, and it became obvious that where Hilltops Council is spending a huge amount of money on roadside weed control around the towns and villages, and rules have changed, which basically limits or prohibits the weeds officers to enter private property to carry out inspections, and where once they had the ability to take out weeds or take action to control weeds on private property and then issue invoices for that work, and often they weren't paid, but I think it was a section 46. They could issue a section 46, which meant that the cost of that weed control went against the property, and when it was sold, the money could be recouped. Long story short, they don't have much, if any, ability to do weed control or to try and force private landholders to control weeds. They are by and large owners of small blocks. They buy land, they don't understand their obligations. And I think, I can't remember the exact amount, but the weeds officer said we're spending something like $340,000 just in chemicals alone controlling weeds. And I thought, well, we've got to take action on this, and there's no point in us spending more and more money if the weeds are just getting away and blowing onto the roadsides, given a lot of ratepayers accuse council of the opposite. I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that where it's private landholders causing problems, we should be able to do something. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. Hopefully the New South Wales annual conference will see fit to support the late notice, but it's really about trying to reinstate provisions that were there once upon a time in days gone by and before it became impossible to do anything. So I think the Section 46 legislation doesn't exist anymore, but it's about getting local government New South Wales to actively support this and take it up with the state government. So
Okay,
with
thank
that,
you.
I'll hand back over.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. If there are no questions, comments, I'll put it to the vote. And the vote is to put forward the following motion to the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference. So we're voting to put forward the motion.
Just a question,
Councillor Armstrong.
Madam Mayor, just the third word, should that be clarify or is clarity?
Clarify, I would say.
Sorry, Councillor Flannery, that was the wording that I discerned from your one. Is it clarify or clarity?
I think it's clarify.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, clarify makes sense. All right. The
I
Councillor
think it
Dodd.
might be clarity because it was around being able, and clarity
Support.
makes more sense than changing it to clarify. And it was around councils being able to do things around over particular weeds that sometimes have a different, might be classified a certain way, and we can't do anything about it because they're classified a certain way, and it's not very clear, especially for areas like Hilltops, which is in between different areas, comes under different regional weed areas.
I did read it as clarity and not clarify, but that was me, but it's the word in it.
Question,
Or
how
council-
does one
council-
clarity?
Yeah,
Can someone please explain the context of the use of the word there? Because how does one clarity?
yeah, that's a noun, you see, and to clarify is a verb. So,
When I was a student, it was anyway.
Councillor Flannery, it's your call.
Look, I think
File
it reads,
for councils too. maybe.
support and clarify for council.
Okay. So support and clarify for council to be able to enforce weed control on private land where problem weeds have been identified and are likely to cause an economic loss to the agricultural sector under the Biosecurity Act 2015. Right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. And we'll move on to the second mayoral minute. And once again, thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. I move it. Well, I don't need a seconder. I will defer once again to Councillor Flannery.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. Look, it's a bit more of the same. There was discussion and complaints in the last weeds meeting about timber that's lying on the side of the road, getting into drains. There was general discussion about problem weeds, how to treat them, spraying, grading, mowing, and which led to a discussion about the debris that's now existing along roadsides, because I think I don't remember the exact legislation, but by and large, we're not allowed to touch anything that falls off a tree anymore because of environmental laws. And I think common sense has got to be able to prevail here, where I've increasingly watched the verge get clogged up with fallen timber as we've had storms go through in the last few years. I've spoken to directors about it, and they say other than the immediate road verge and drain, they can't touch it. And it's becoming a fire hazard, it's becoming a weed hazard, it's becoming a stormwater runoff hazard. So where once upon a time again, councils were able to open, and I'm probably going back 15 years here at least, councils once upon a time were able to put notices in the paper and say, Tim, firewood could be collected from Cunningo Road or whatever road, and for a certain period. That doesn't exist anymore because we've become all too woke. And it's becoming a problem. It's becoming a fire problem. It's becoming a general problem. We're getting, with these storms we're getting over summer and whatnot, we need to be given the opportunity to do something about it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. Any queries, questions? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We will make sure that both of those are forwarded to the local New South Wales conference. All right.
I thought it was coffees for everyone, councillor. I thought that was the rule, but anyway. Madam Mayor.
Okay, let's go on to the mayoral report. It's in front of you. I do have just one more. Just on the 23rd of October, I actually was at the Hilltops Small Business Forum with Councillor Foreman last night. But there you can see it.
And Madam Mayor, the AGM for the Youngtown Band wasn't held, wasn't it?
Oh, no, it wasn't. No, but I did attend their meeting.
Okay.
So take out the AGM
Meeting.
and just put meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Yes, do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pup. Those in favour? Thank you. We'll move on then to councillor reports. I'll just beg your pardon? Yep. Councillor, I will go around the table actually, it's a good idea. Councillor Ingram. do you have,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Meetings as minute, there's a number of meetings with constituents, thanks to the word we use, and one in particular I'll touch on later on with a group of business people and ratepayers in regards to some issues with our council.
thank you, councillor Ingram, councillor Foreman.
Meetings is minute. Thank you.
Okay. Me, all right, councillor Mackie,
Please strike out the name for those.
all right, thank you, okay. Councillor Flannery,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't remember the date of the Wool Fest, not Wool Festival, Kite Festival. Yeah, I wish. Kite Festival, Harden SRV, extraordinary council meeting 9th of October. Biosecurity Weeds meeting and 3 constituent meetings and a go-along meeting.
thank you. Councillor Stadmiller,
Meetings as minuted, which would be this meeting. I didn't make the last one, and just a series of phone calls with constituents. A couple of those I'll raise issues with later.
thank you. And councillor Hewson, thank you. Councillor Armstrong,
A number of telephone meetings, telephone calls from constituents concerned about the potential SRV and their apparent lack of awareness of the meetings, despite the fact that there were 20 meetings. There was significant concern from all of them that they didn't feel as though they were adequately advised. Some of that relates to the lack of information, specifically the SRV quantum.
thank you. Councillor Piper,
I obviously went to the Wool Fest, but I didn't put it on the list. And on Friday, I attended the netball, touch football at BOOROWA showground, and I happen to have at the same time the general manager of the Golden Fields with me, and he said, "Oh, do you know where it is?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, good, I've got 2 kids down there." So we went down, and he couldn't believe how much of the BOOROWA Oval, except for the racecourse, was being used. And he's got his camera out and he's taking photos everywhere about it all. He was absolutely amazed. And on Monday night, I attended the annual general meeting of the Business Chamber of BOOROWA.
thank you, councillor. Councillor Dodd,
As listed. Thank you.
thank you. And councillor Fitzgerald, we'll just have to meetings as minuted. All right, do I have a mover for that? For this, thank you. Councillor Armstrong and seconder, councillor Stadmiller. All those in favour? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Number 11, Community Recognition Scheme.
I have one, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
and I'm pleased to say that it's the second time I've mentioned Pat Walsh for his commendations. He was awarded, I've forgotten the name of the Eric Cox Medal, and was co-awarded along with one of the NRL's finest referees, not Gavin Badger, I can't forget, but it very significant to be awarded with an 10-year NRL referee. I think speaks volumes about what Pat has done for Junior League in Harden and Southwest.
Yes, I agree with you, councillor, and I had it on my list, so thank you for that. Councillor Stadmiller, and then councillor Hubbard.
I'd just like to recognise Carmel Brown of Harden, who's she's the wife of a former mayor, Pat Brown. She was recognised for well over 45 years of volunteering with the Harden Hospital Auxiliary at a recent awards ceremony in Newcastle. I'll get the exact information to you for the award. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Stadmiller. If there is nobody else, I'll move. Can I have a mover? Thank you, councillor Foreman. Seconder, councillor Piper. Those in favour? Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 12.1, executive meetings attended by the GM. Have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Your question, Councillor Flanagan.
To the extent that it may or may not be able to be answered, I noticed the CFO has only attended one SRV meeting. Is there a reason why? I would have thought when I look at the list of other directors attending SRV meetings, I'm probably surprised here.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I know the CFO has attended more than one. I can't remember the count, but no specific reason other than the attendance was mandatory for myself, and we just tried to share the load across the other directors. Thank you.
So the list.
I understand that the CFO has just said he's attended 4.
I know. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any questions? No, we've had a mover and
Question, sorry. And the meeting, was it the 7th of October, Technology 1, was it a general presentation, like was it a workshop or was it a open presentation for the 7th of October?
Look, just through, before we enter this, as said before, these are not to be questioned. Any questions in relation to these meetings need to go through the process and answered. I do note that there is another report in relation to the technology questions. So I think that that question can be asked during that report rather than this report, because it provides information. That was the LG advice. There are no questions on the diaries of the executive.
The councillors have been refused questions to answers, Councillor Flannery.
No, they have not been refused. The proper process is to put them in writing to me, where I responded in writing, not in the public forum, Councillor, as advised by the OLG. Thank you.
yes, and we'll follow the OLG advice. All right, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, 12.2, 23.266, cash and investment report. The recommendation is in front of us. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder? Oh, 2 hands. Councillor Hewson, I think, was up first. Yes, Justice. All right. Any questions?
No. Madam Mayor, through you to the CFO or the General Manager. Could we be advised of, I asked at the last meeting about VPR funds, and I was advised that Council holds the funds. So could we be advised of the balance as of the 20th of June for the Geelong VPA money? And noting the interest rates there, and I assume the money accrues on both internal and externally restricted funds, the amount of interest that's accrued on the Geelong VPA money annually and how it's treated.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report refers to where we invest Council's money, not the way in which that money is distributed across the Council funds. So we can take that question on notice in relation to the VPA, but it's not actually relevant to this report.
I asked at the last Council meeting about the payment of VPA money, and I was told that it sits in Council funds, and given that we have funds both on short-term money market and or overnight funds, and we also have on term deposits, I'm assuming the VPA money sits on one of those 2 accounts and should be accounted for. So I would have thought it's quite relevant. It's not sitting there for rainy day. It's sitting there for a purpose.
We'll need to take that on notice, Councillor, because I'm not aware of which of these accounts, if it's separated, it may be just a separate allocation within the accounts in relation to any number of those accounts, but we will take that on notice. Thank you.
Question?
Question 1, 2, 3. Councillor Ingram, I think you were inferring.
I was just wondering if I could get a deposit the same as the council's got on the last transaction on page 37, where it was lodged on the 28th of September 23 and it matures on the 27th of March 23. Only attention to detail, that's all I'm bringing it up for, but it's not too bad if you can get it. Can we have that clarified, please?
Yes, I believe that would be a transposition error, but we'll take that.
How does such an error like that occur? Just human error, or is it a machine that does it for us? Tech one.
TFO, just in relation to the date lodged.
My recollection is it's a 6-month investment, should have been 27th of March, set 24. From September.
I gathered that, but how does it come up in the business paper as March 23? Is that human or is that machine?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure to check it for you.
So you're telling me you don't know how this report's put together?
Yeah, I do know it's put together manually by a human.
Thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Piper.
The third item there, its mature date is finished. I'm hoping that we've got more interest at 2.6 for the reinvestment.
CFO.
Yes, so the first investment, 3rd of October, that's now achieving 4.8%. The one that matured on the 10th of October, that's achieving 4.82. The one on the 19th of October with St George is achieving 4.8. The one that matured on the 24th, yesterday for the Combank, that's getting 5.1. And the one that matured with St George on the 21st was put out at 4.32.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question just to the General Manager. In regard to the interest received so far, I know there's $512,000. Is that actually paid to us or is that an accrual?
Mr. CFO.
Yeah, no, it's paid. Councillor Armstrong, it's paid to us.
Question of the CFO.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, would you like to just expand for the person with poor financial literacy what it means when the major banks are restricting the deposits?
Sorry, can I miss that question?
Yeah, why the major bank restricting or limiting deposits?
We need to make sure that we've got a balanced portfolio and not depositing with all banks. So at the time an investment becomes mature, financial accountant rings around to see what's available. But we need to be conscious of the fact that we just can't place it all out with one institution.
So it's not the banks that are limiting deposit, it's our decision.
In some cases, it may be the case, yeah. They may not take it or they may offer a lower rate. And so we'll take it somewhere else.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Back to 2 questions I asked a minute or so ago. I'll answer one of them myself, seeing no one in council knows. The balance as at the 30th of June 2023 for Gale VPA funds, according to the committee's calculations, which hasn't met for 2 years, is $419,916.68. But it doesn't account for interest that should have accrued during the time. Can the director advise of how VPA funds are treated vis-a-vis interest, given the funds don't belong to council?
The VPA fund should accrue interest. We apply interest across all balance of all assets.
And given we have funds on multiple accounts, how do you attribute the interest, given I can't see any amount of money here that matches the Gaylong VPA funds? Presumably you have to, do you average the interest or do you attribute it to
Correct.
one quantity of money?
Yeah, no, it's based on the monthly balance. So it's across the entire financial year.
What records does council have of VPA funds, and do you think it would be good practice if they were published?
Yeah, they are. So the 30 June accounts will be published. In the quarterly QBR, the VPA funds are accounted for in terms of the opening balance, the movement and the closing balance. So, and there's a separate ledger account for all the BPA accounts, as there is for all accounts. A separate ledger account maintaining the ledger in terms of tracking income in, expenditure, and closing balance.
Well, I haven't seen any VPA balances that account for interest as well.
That would be shown in the movement in, but if you want the interest separately needed to give you separate interest on Gaylong,
the interest on the Gaylong funds that's been provided to me hasn't shown an interest accrual.
I'm not sure where you've got that information from, but I can provide it for you.
Could you provide that to the next meeting, please?
Certainly. Yep.
Thank you. All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. All right, we will, Councillor, yes. We'll move on to 12.3, 23-267, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder, Councillor Mackie. Are there any questions?
In relation to the Hilltops water user charges analysis, it notes on the bottom of page 41, the total outstanding as of the 31st of August 2023 is 896,135. I'm assuming that doesn't include the not due amount. Is that correct?
Correct.
So when I added the all amounts that are due, unless my calculator was wrong, I got 772,292.
In terms of the balance of 1.34 minus the 568,000.
Yes, correct.
Because that's obviously that's due then, that becomes due after the 31st of August. So I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, when you add them up until 1 year, there's $418,479 due, and through the 5 years, if you add the balance there of 172,000, 133,000, and 47,000, the total comes to 772,292, not 896,135.
I'll need to recheck those ads. This certainly comes off the system, so I need to check the ads on that. You're suggesting it doesn't add.
They're a month apart, Councillor.
Yeah.
That's the end of August. This is the end of September. So if anyone's paid their bills, that would be about 100 grand that we've got back in.
Yeah.
And that would be across the whole range of the overdue amounts. If someone was in the 3 to 4 months, that may not necessarily be to 2 to 5. It's anyone can pay the debt anyway through that. So the movement in the total balance would be across any range of those.
The next question was, have we received $123,843 in the last month in water payments?
I'd have to take that on notice and give you that information. I mean, if you want to know the movement in terms of the cash we've received in the last month.
Well, we levy, according to these figures, we levy, I've lost the number, but we levy around 800,000 a year, of which 400,000 is now 12 months overdue, or 418,000, and we've got a further 350,000 that's 12 to 5 months. So basically 50%, 40% of our outstanding water charges are running as overdue.
Yeah, we have quite a few outstanding debts, which is what we're pursuing right now. It's a continual process. I've actually mentioned
40% is a very high number.
It is, yeah. Over 3 months across all categories is quite high. That's exactly what I'm pursuing right now. Some of these people are now appearing in court with summonses, and we're working. I think I said this before. I can't issue all reminder. These people all had reminder notice. They're getting their rate notice every quarter, but I cannot issue the volume of those rate notes out in just one go. We wouldn't be able to handle the feedback. It's impossible. So we're currently, every fortnight, we're currently working through all these accounts.
Question to CFO. I think I may have raised it through you, Madam Mayor, previous meeting. Could we have a breakdown of these numbers in regards to how it used to be presented, and another line on the bottom of it where the given that the water funds are separate, remain that way. Could we have a breakdown of where these overdue rates are located, which water fund separately, please?
Oh, okay.
You
Is that-
understand? You understand?
Yeah,
Just
by
want to
water
clarify,
fund.
I asked once before and nothing else. I just want to clarify that you understand what I'm asking for.
By fund.
By BOOROWA, LGA,
Yeah.
and LGA Harden LGA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, do you want that as a permanent fixture in the quarterly reports or monthly report or?
So when I first arrived,
Monthly report, when it comes out like this, the
Okay,
numbers are obviously
right.
done, so it wouldn't be that hard. They're separate.
Yeah, no, we got that information.
Just for
Councillor Stan.
clarification, if that's all right, Madam Mayor, the second paragraph, bottom of page 40, council is preparing a schedule of properties for council to consider as sale of land. Under section 715, does that occur after 5 years of total unpaid rates before council can put that up for sale? Or
That's correct.
and is that the legislation that we work by?
That's
We
correct.
try to stick to that and not let it allow it to go on any further, or?
Some of the sales that were up last year were greater than the 5-year period.
Yep.
There was quite a bit of, when I'd inherited that as I got here and had to go through those two sales, there were a number of properties, 10 and 12 years unpaid rates.
Okay,
At
thank
the
you.
moment, the one we're putting up now, currently getting that compiled, everything over 5 years.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no more questions. We'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll turn to 12.4. All right. Fees and charges correction, 23, 26. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it with a question.
Thank you, councillor Armstrong. Thank you, councillor Flannery. Councillor Armstrong.
A number of questions, Madam Mayor. Can someone please explain the term maximise cost recovery? If it's in the second line, I'll start with that one. What does that mean, maximise cost recovery? Given that there's a 40% on cost added into this cost.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Mr.
to
Chair.
fulsomely answer that, do we know to go into confidential to fulsomely answer that question, Mr. CFO?
I don't believe we do, Mr. General Manager. I've
Well-
asked a question in regard to the content of not the report, not the material that supports the history of this charge, because I've got more questions that relate specifically to that, but not necessarily mentioning any names.
Okay, I'll
So what
leave
does
it to the CFO, but I'll just caution the CFO that
it's to ensure?
It's to ensure that we obviously do not lose money when recovering costs for unauthorised work.
So to maximise cost recovery is to get all of our costs back. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I know that there's a 40% on cost, so it would
Yep.
appear as on first reading that maximising cost recovery is generation of a 40% additional fee. So that concerns me. The other thing that concerns me about this is when I read section 102 of the Roads Act, titled Liability for Damage to Public Roads, it actually provides a mechanism whereby council can recover its actual costs without this fee being set. So I'm wondering why we need this fee in light of section 102 of the Roads Act, and where section 102 of the Roads Act is deficient in that.
If I can answer that, the issue was that we obtained legal advice because of unauthorised roadworks, and the question was whether, in fact, the description we had in the fees and charges adequately described or could not be contested in court. And so the wording that's provided there is based on legal advice.
But the wording you've got in there is contrary to the wording in an Act of Parliament, because we can only recover our actual cost, not cost plus 40%. So if indeed council is going to rely upon an Act of Parliament to recover costs, I would suggest we'd probably rely on section 102 of the Roads Act. No, section 102 of the Roads Act provides for recovery of actual costs, not cost plus 40%. I ask the question again, why do we need this in light of section 102 of the Roads Act?
I can only repeat that was based on legal advice in relation to unauthorised works that we had described in our fees and charges. And the advice was that that need to be clarified, that somebody could contest that in court.
I'd suggest very strongly.
And we did look at, we
probably need to recheck that legal advice, because testing the validity of section 102 of the Roads Act would be testing the validity of an act of Parliament passed by the New South Wales government, not a fee or a charge set by a regional council in New South Wales, where it is cost plus. I think this is perhaps the most unnecessary charge that we could possibly bring that could be possibly brought to council. Section 102 of the Roads Act is in there for a purpose, so as councils can use it. But it would appear to me as though there's been no consideration of section 102 of the Roads Act. Perhaps the General Manager would be able to make some comment in that regard.
Would you like me to answer that question? Yes, section 102 was taken into consideration in relation to introducing this fee and charge.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Councillor Flannery, did you have a question first? Did you say no? You didn't. Sorry. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Stedman.
just a question here. It says unauthorised works carried out to or on council-owned or managed roads. What defines a council-owned or managed road if a council has transferred that road to the state government? Is that still owned by or managed by, or does that fall under the restraint of the state government?
My understanding is that's a council road, not a Crown road, a council road, which is defined under the Roads Act as a council road.
Can you just repeat that, please?
It's a council road as defined under the Roads Act.
Okay. I just had a constituent contact me recently where he was leasing a block of land, which was a paper road, I suppose, previously under the control of council, and it had been transferred to the state. So I'm trying to work out whether, if he did any work on that and he leases it, whether he would be in contravention of damaging that piece of land or not.
If you could provide me with the details, I can actually get that checked for you.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I note in the policy and legislation section, despite being advised that the Roads Act was considered, there is no mention of the Roads Act in there at all. I also draw council's attention to section 4, subsection 1 of the Road Transport Act, that defines all of the related verbiage and the assets that relate to a particular section 102. Person who causes damage to a public road, any road work, public road, and road control facility on a road or road related area within the meaning of section 4.1 of the Road Transport Act is responsible for making good the damage. Is liable to pay the appropriate road authority the cost incurred by the authority in making good the damage. Sorry, is liable to pay the appropriate roads authority the cost incurred by that authority in making good the damage. Now, I just can't see why there's need to create a fee and a charge when the legislation couldn't be any clearer than the nose in your face.
I can only say that's the legal advice we received based on the way we had that defined in our fees and charges.
Just a quick question in regard to that. Have we got that?
Thank you.
That information provided by legal in writing?
Correct.
Can we please be presented with that?
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask, why wouldn't council be provided with that advice as part of this report?
Can I move that we move into confidential, please?
We have a move. Do we have a second for confidential?
Do we have?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Those in favour?
Yeah.
Moving into confidential, we'll just wait for the live feed to be off.
We've debated what needed to be debated in confidential. Now it's open. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. General Manager. Okay, the recommendation is there.
I'd like to move
Endorse.
an amendment.
Oh, move an amendment. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Let the matter come back to council, together with a copy of the legal advice, and a full history of how this charge will be applied, or full description of how the charge would be applied in light of section 102 of the Roads Act.
Charge would be applied.
Given that it's legal advice, councillor, that will have to come back into confidential.
That's right. All right, the amendment, that the matter, I think that's a double treating. Come back to council with copy of legal advice and full description of how charge would be applied under section 102 of the Roads Act.
So
It's moved by Councillor Armstrong.
it was actually moved by Councillor Armstrong and seconded by Councillor Flannery. So if you're changing your motion to that motion, if you agree with that motion, it's then not amendment, it is the motion.
I was about to say that. Since Councillor Armstrong. Well, we under. All right. Okay. So the motion as it reads now. That the matter come back to council with copy of legal advice and full description of how the charge would be applied under section 102 of the Roads Act. Councillor Armstrong? All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Oh, unanimous? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the discussion. All right, let's move on to 12.5. Turn my page. Information systems update. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, Councillor Fitzgerald. And question, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just through you to the General Manager, CFO. I note the in the project priorities, number 1, revenue modules. I note the comment that the following has been achieved, and a list there. Are all of the functions now being carried out by council staff and to the satisfaction of the CFO?
Councillor Armstrong, no, there's more work being done next week, in fact, on Tuesday to Thursday, where we're actually expanding issues around reconciliations and so forth, and training in the rates area. So there's more work to be done.
So we haven't achieved the items.
These items, yes. Yeah, these items are in place.
Okay, so the functions are now being done?
Correct.
To your satisfaction?
Correct.
Thank you.
Question
Councillor
for
Flannery.
you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions, actually. So the report, under report summary background, the objectives of discussions with Technology One are across the financial systems and modules to review and improve the functionality of the modules. I'll refer back to the Director's report, where the Director on the 7th of October, Technology One System Overview presentation, Sydney, was at a council-specific meeting about Technology One and its systems, or was that just a general workshop open to the Technology One users? And the objectives of discussions, could you define discussions, please?
Sorry, where are you referring to now?
Was discussions a phone call? Was discussions a meeting with outcomes to achieve during the meeting or workshop, or however you might like to phrase it? And I know you attended Technology One in Sydney. So does that relate to this report, the meeting in Sydney, or was it just a general?
No, that actually related to particularly in relation to the asset management module, which we've got to start planning to introduce. That was relating to changes or the latest software updates. So it was a session at North Sydney at Tech One, running through mostly asset management module, which is currently being tested in 2 other councils. And in fact, there is another session planned for that as a rollout on the 14th of November.
So that session didn't relate specifically to Hilltops Council. It was for those who might be considering using
several councils there. Yeah, I can't remember. There was a pack room. There was quite a few councils there.
So the asset management module, given we haven't implemented, nor do we have successfully used many of the ones we're already paying for, is it something that you believe, having attended the workshop, that we can jump straight to, or do we need to deal with what's in front of us first?
There's some planning involved in that, and the session on the 14th that I've just received, again directed to all councils, actually that's a full demonstration and has KPMG and other parties that have been involved with Tech One. So they're actually doing a whole demonstration across the module. So there's been improvements to the module, and we intend to go to a couple of councils that are currently testing it and actually see how they're using it as well. So that's on 14th of November. There's a full demonstration on the new asset management module.
And to add a module, just approximately what's the cost of adding another module?
That module is part of the current fee. The enterprise asset management is part of our current fee.
Right. And so the objectives of discussions with Technology One, was that specific meetings, or was it a general discussion?
So the discussion with Technology One is I've been wanting them to actually make sure that our system configuration is correct as we then add on the report writing and the accounts payable e-invoicing.
Okay.
No,
thank you.
So when you say that our configuration is correct, what do you mean by our configuration is correct?
I just want to make sure that our system configuration setup is correct, that we won't have any the one council had an issue, and I think it was in relation to the way their chart of accounts, their structure, organisational structure was set up. I need to make sure that that's in train, and that we then don't have to go back, or we don't have a problem in relation to putting in the asset management module in particular. That's the big issue. So I haven't got to that point yet.
So is that a online where they use Teams to log into your computer and they look at it with you and go through it?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I am actually hoping that with some of the XL1 training that they're actually going to come out on site, and I'm just in the process of setting that up.
And on point 2, report writing and training, the schedule of staff initially 12 to be trained in XL1 finance. So we've provided Technology One with a schedule of staff that we want trained.
I've hesitated on that at the moment because I've got some staff still working on finishing off financial accounts the year end. And so I'm trying to plan that. I've just got to talk to the other directors and actually get that moving fairly quickly. So there'll be one lot of people trained, and probably a couple of weeks later another lot. 6 people to a training session is what they've advised me. So I've yet to actually just determine which people, and after I talk to the other directors, will go to the first lot course and then the second course.
And because I'm just curious as to why it's at Technology One. It seems to be at Technology One's behest as to whether they'll allow 12 people to be trained.
There's no issue there. No, they've told me there's 6 people. They do 6 people to a class on the XL1 training.
Right, because it just says it's being agreed with Technology One.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The council that we are tending to go and have a look at, is it a council that has Tech One up and running and happy with it?
Correct.
Could you name the council or not?
There's 2 of them actually, but these are the 2 councils currently testing the enterprise asset management at Shoalhaven and Eurobodalla.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Couple of questions.
Councillor Stefanoa.
Just on the financial implications, what are they, if any? If we're having 12 staff trained, is that being covered by Tech One? Is anybody going to North Sydney? It's just saying as presented in the report, but there's no dollar sign whatsoever that I can see unless I can be corrected.
I haven't finalised the cost. I believe it's about $2,500. My intention is actually to get either do it on Teams or actually have a person take one down here, provide the training.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with Councillor Armstrong on this one and foreshadow a motion, which is to put our information systems out for tender. I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of support on that, but Councillor Armstrong will understand that I'm continuing with my path of not wanting to throw good money after bad with Tech One. So I'll foreshadow that motion that we put our information systems out to tender. Because at this stage, if we still have to send a workforce of 12 people to understand this 6.5, 7 years in, and with the money we've spent, I don't think we can justify continuing to do that. So, thank you.
Okay. Yes, and Councillor Flannery, this might be just about your last round of questions.
I'm here for the ratepayers, Madam Mayor. I thought at the September meeting, we agreed that we get monthly reports, including a Gantt chart. Was that not correct? Of the time frame for implementation of modules?
I haven't developed the Gantt chart in terms of this process here, but I can do that. Yeah. I did one a very high level one initially.
That would be good, thank you.
Well, I've got to get the project timeline set up for this first in order to do that.
If you've got a Gantt chart, it'll help you establish what the time frame was that you committed to.
We use Gantt charts, understand.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'll put it to the floor that Council receive and note the report. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackey, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Houston, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd are for.
Thank you.
Again.
And against?
Against Councillor Flannery and Councillor Stadmiller passed.
Right, thank you. Okay. Moving on.
Move the recommendation with the request that a list together with the rentals come back to council for information.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Houston, your hand was up. So, Councillor Armstrong, would you just repeat your...
I'm happy to move that way.
Yep.
But I'd request that a list together with the rental charges come back to council for the council's information.
Yes, we can do that.
Right. You're right. Okay. If there's no further questions, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll move on to 12.7, the Local Heritage Fund, 23-24. And there's the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Any question? Councillor Stadmiller.
Yeah, just the figure, Madam Mayor, 5,460. I might be a little bit out of touch with this. It says the total budgeted amount is $5,500. Is that all we have had each year in the Heritage Fund? I thought there was more money in that.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we get a block grant forward for two services. One is to provide a heritage grant program and the other one is to provide heritage advisory services. So the balance of that extra $60 will go to the heritage advisory service.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
And also there was Councillor Stadmiller also asked, you thought the money was more. There has been a vast reduction.
So yep. So we used to get $30,000 per annum, and from this financial year, it's been reduced to $30,000 per 2 years. So $15,000 per year, which is why we been up on the 5.5 for the grants.
Where's the other 10?
For the Heritage Advisory Service.
You're kidding.
Okay.
We're giving 10 to the advisor and we're getting 5. I think we better can the program.
Yes, so for you, Madam Mayor, we get real value out of the Heritage Advisory Service. That's the primary benefit, is actually to have people that are responsible for heritage items having the opportunity to talk to someone, to give them advice so they can care and look after their asset. When you look at the report and you see how much the project costs are, the grant is only going to cover the 5,500, 8% of the total cost of those projects. So even if we were to spend the whole lot, you're only talking about, up to sort of 20%. The benefit is that incentivizes, that grant incentivizes those owners to get their advice, and then they're going to spend their own time, effort and money to keep those heritage items up to spec. So the heritage guide is a really important part of the ensuring our heritage items are retained for the future.
Okay, thank you. Are we done? Yes, we've got second. All right, I'll put it to the floor.
Can I move a foreshadow motion?
Yes.
That a report come back to council detailing how we can spend this and reallocate funds both towards the Heritage Advisor and the Heritage Fund. I think they're a little bit out of whack, and we need to realign them so that more money's going into bricks and mortar, literally, than the advising part. Some of the things that I've looked at in the report are simple bricks replacement, paving replacement, putty around windows, stuff like this that handymen can do. And the money that we're giving out here is $780. In summer, a tradesman might cost $75 an hour and do a 10-hour day. And one particular residence is going to get a day out of that tradesman, and they're gone. So I think we've got to have a report come back so councillors can vote this. Or if I can add to it, that would be better, Madam Mayor. Add that we have a report come back. Maybe a point C if the mover and seconder are amenable to it.
So was that your foreshadow?
Yeah. My apologies. Can I remove the foreshadowed motion and see if the mover and seconder would be amenable to adding a point C, where we have a report come back to discuss how we disperse the money via the advising part and the heritage part. If I make sense there.
So, Councillor Stadmiller, you've moved. So I understand an amendment where a report on the distribution of future monies regarding the spend between the Heritage Advisor and the Heritage
items themselves,
the Heritage Fund.
Does that amendment?
Also,
no, it's not an amendment.
Well, he's moving an amendment, but should the mover and seconder, being Councillor Armstrong and Fitzgerald, who's not here at the moment, agree to that?
Doesn't it directly fly in line of the original?
Oh no, we're going. As I understand it, it's there is no question about the dispersal and the delegation to spend the money. The third item is a further report be brought back to council. This be resolved that the money be spent in the way in which is in the report, but a further report be brought to how is it allocated currently between the two, because Councillor Stadmiller believes there's an imbalance between the advisor and the fund. So it's not in a contradiction, it's a future looking. Is that correct, Councillor Stadmiller?
Yep, 100%.
Thank you. Given that the seconder is not present at the moment,
he might be reminded of some telephone rules, Mr. General Manager.
But I would like the RE on reallocation back now, because there's will be the allocation of money, not retrospective allocation of money.
Yep. That's it.
No, that's.
Apologise to the meeting for the urgent calls that had to be taken.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Fitzgerald, while you've been out, there's been an amendment proposed by Councillor Stadmiller, and the amendment is there before you on the screen, whereas a further report on the distribution of monies between the Heritage Advisor and the heritage items come back to council regarding spend and allocation of funds. If you, Councillor Armstrong just did a small tweak to that, and that is the wording, and that's the intent of Councillor Stadmiller. If you're agreeable for a further report to be come back,
I have no problem with that.
Okay, then for it becomes the motion and we can vote on it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's now added. Yeah.
Yes.
It's added.
Right. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Right, let's move on to 12.8, 23-272, post-exhibition naming of new roads in DONOHOE'S estate, BOOROWA East subdivision. The recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mackie. Any questions? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. I'll move apace. And we're up to 12.9, development application stats for September 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and the seconder. It's on page 107. Thank you, Councillor Foreman. All right. Councillor Armstrong, your
Thank you, Madam
hand is
Mayor.
up.
Just some questions in regard to a couple of applications here. I might have asked these before, but I like to keep current with the ones that seem to be dragging on. On page 109, we've got two subdivisions, both in Hill Street, Young, that have they've had clock stop days for 3 years. I'm just wondering, is there any movement likely with these things that have been stopped for 3 years?
So for you, Madam,
2101701066.
thank you for that, Councillor Armstrong. Yes, so on 170, the further information is with waiting on Crown Lands for feedback, and the last contact was back in February this year, so it's been a while. On the 066 the 62 Hill Street, the outstanding issues are around servicing plans and an environmental report, so that's sitting with the applicant to provide that information.
Would we be likely to get the stick out and tickle the Crown Department of Crown Lands in regards to 0170, given that they've had it for almost a year?
So, Madam Mayor, I've actually arranged to talk to a local Crown Lands manager next week. So we've got a number of matters that we're wanting to talk to them about, and that will be
wonderful.
Good.
It'll be great to get an update on that one. The DA 2022-0197 at 48 Smith Street, Harden, page 110. No updates in regards to the information sought there.
No, through Madam Mayor, nothing new to update.
Nothing new. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That one's starting to drag on too. The other one was DA 2023-0106 on page 117. I noticed that it's now at 80 days processing for demolition. Is there building going on there as well, or is it only demolition? It's just 80 days. It's notified, and it's 80 days of processing time internally. And I would have thought we would have got a little bit further, or progressed a bit further than notified in 80 internal days.
Yes, so through Madam Mayor, I'll take that one on notice. Yeah.
Can we get some advice on that one, please? Because this isn't for construction. It says it's for demolition there. And I wouldn't have thought that 80 days processing would have been able to, I would have thought that 80 days processing would have been able to get a little bit further than notified on that one there.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Stadmiller.
Just a question for the Director. Quarry expansion, page 113, the first line. Modification to remove contribution conditions and enter into a planning agreement. The contribution conditions pertain to a VPA, and how will that change in regard to revenue if a planning agreement is entered into?
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, if the council was to contemplate entering into a VPA, that comes back to you for your approval, and you will be, you will report on any financial implications arising from it.
All right.
Just got one more.
Oh,
Excuse me.
thank you. And then
Page 117, secondary dwelling van home. It's the top line. Could you just elaborate on what a van home is? So I did go to the Murray Bateman field days and see a number of small homes on trailers. Is that what that constitutes?
Yes. Yes.
all right, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Sundry.
What does notified mean?
So through you, Madam Mayor, that means that it's been put out on public exhibition, that the public notice has been advertised.
So if it's put out in public exhibition, and then the clock has stopped, shouldn't it be either under assessment or further information? No.
So through you, Madam Mayor, this is our internal reporting, and so we have the time, and so what I want to understand from my team is the time that they're spending working on each DA. So the time that a DA is on an exhibition is time that, you know, until we get the feedback from submitters, we're going to be doing nothing more with that application. And so for our internal reporting, which is what you're seeing here, it doesn't count in terms of our processing days.
Okay, thank you.
That made not much sense to me, but I'll pick one out of the blue here. DA 2023/0126. So at Gerrybang Lane, Monteagle, have no idea what it's about. I'm using it as an example. It says it's notified and clock stopped 38 days. I would have thought if something goes out to notification, council's basically reviewed the document, notified the neighbours, has no significant issues, so that it hasn't asked for further information. It's put it out notification, and unless something comes back, it's expecting general approval. But on a number of these, I noticed the clock stopped after it's been notified.
Yes, so to you, Madam Mayor, this is a complete view. So what we're giving you is the days that the DAs, throughout its whole process, the clock has stopped. So it may be that prior to notification, we've gone back to the applicant, asked for more information, and so those days are recorded. And then there's the days that we show where it's gone up for external referral. So you can see that's the days that it's not sitting, it's not sitting with us, but it's sitting with the applicant. And then there's our processing days. So you need to read the whole lot as a whole to get the full picture of, the history of each of those DAs. So, yeah, yes, yeah.
But if the clock stopped, there must be further information described. It's more than just notified.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, that could refer to where the clock had been stopped prior to the exhibition period. So we're just telling you that, the full timeline of that application. So, yeah.
So if it's notified and the clock stopped, there's a chance that no further information is required.
Yes, that is.
I can't find the list number, so you'll have to excuse me. Tiedemann Place, subdivision. You advise us where it is up to.
So it's Tiedemann Place subdivision. We're waiting for the applicant to, I think, pay their fees for the subdivision consent. And there's some documentation outstanding.
So it's the applicant needs to pay fees and respond.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Page
Councillor Piper.
109, the first three items on application, are we making sure that council get the right design for these? And everyone here has been to these applications for maybe a possible rate increase can understand the trouble that people are having out there, especially old people like me, lifting rubbish up into bins instead of putting it down into bins. Let's get the design of these correct.
Yes.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I
comment
can't talk to the nature of the application, but yeah.
I think it was more a comment. Is that
Yeah.
right, Councillor Piper? Okay, righto. Thank you. If there are no more questions, comments, I will put it to the floor. Those in favour? Yep, thank you. We'll move on to 12.10, draft Hilltops Council Financial Assistance and Sponsorship Policy. The recommendation.
Move it with a question.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. I do note that in 2.1, the first eligibility criteria is at odds with 6.2. That probably needs to be sorted out. The other thing, can someone please explain the carryover from the current policy that is in 2.2? The words are any event or activity or / activity which is assessed as a risk management cost to council. It didn't mean anything in the last policy, and it certainly doesn't mean anything in this policy, to me anyway. I do note that the condition of assistance will not be provided where funds are to be redistributed by the applicant appears to have been omitted from this draft.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Notes are being taken. Okay, thank you. If there are no other comments, queries?
Some questions. I'm looking for responses to a not-for-profit organisation is at odds with a non-for-profit organisation. They're not the same thing. So can we have the reason why we're using not-for-profit in the eligibility, but in the assessment we're using non-for-profit? So it would appear as though no one would be eligible if that's the case. That's certainly missing up there. If I can get some clarification on that, if I can please get explain to me what that means. Any
Councillor, the non-for-profit, I actually picked up that error, and it's typo. I actually did pick that up, and unfortunately it hasn't been achieved. So yeah, 6.2 is a not-for-profit, wholly consistent.
What you're telling me that the draft is incorrect?
Yes, so 6.2 will be just amended before publication. At 6.2 it would be called not-for-profit.
I do note there's a difference between the two, that's all. A non-for-profit is funded entirely by donations and contributions. A not-for-profit is actually able to distribute their profits for the benefit of their members.
That's correct.
But can I get some explanations of what it means when an event or activity which is assessed as a risk management cost to council? What does that mean? Because it doesn't mean much to me. And I do note, as I said before, that there's assistance will not be provided where funds will be redistributed by the applicant has been omitted.
Madam Mayor, the activities that will not be eligible is if we do a risk assessment of the event and the way it's presented provides a risk that is not acceptable to council, we will deem it not to be progressed. And that is, we do a risk assessment on all of these in terms of traffic management, etc. And we look at the applicant and see how they intend to do that. Maybe that bullet point needs a bit more fleshing out to articulate that better.
Thank you for that. I would suggest that the current words are rubbish and mean nothing in the context of what you've just told me, and that there need to be alternate words going there. The other thing that concerns me is that council's doing the risk assessment for potentially for the organiser. And that's really the responsibility of the organiser, I would have thought. But anyway, I'm happy for that to be modified along those lines.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just for clarity, the person running the event does the risk assessment. If we assess that based on their risk assessment, it is not in line with council's risk profile, then we will deem it ineligible, and we'll make that clear in that point.
I think that then that adds meat to the bones, that those words in there are rubbish and need to be replaced.
I just have a few concerns with sometimes the language that's used. Instead of rubbish, can we use perhaps another word, because it is not totally rubbish. And
well, Madam Mayor, I take umbrage at that, because no one could explain what it was, because the explanation that was provided is entirely different to the words in there. Now,
well, perhaps
my understanding is
like that.
When something is inappropriately or incorrectly described, it could be termed rubbish. That is not usable or fit for purpose.
Thank
that's
you,
the
Councillor
context in which I use those words.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
I didn't mean to damage anyone's sensitivities.
Well, I just find it verging on perhaps, and we just have to be careful in the language that we use. That is the question that I'm giving to everybody.
Please.
No, I'm quite serious about that.
Sensibilities are, I think, greater than that.
We will keep going. Thank you.
Councillor Piper has
Moving back on track, Madam Mayor.
Yes. Okay. Right.
The other issue in 6.3, I note that there is no procedure or avenue for non-conforming applications to come back to council. So I would suggest that needs to be added in there. Non-conforming applications will be listed with details of non-conformance for the information of the committee.
Your suggestion, or?
Well, if there's a non-conforming application, if the group who provides a non-conforming application does so, the council committee should be advised that there was a non-conforming application received from this group, and it was non-conforming because of one particular area. Doesn't need a 25-page explanation, and no one gets a gold star because they put one in there. But I think that to simply not advise the committee of non-conforming applications doesn't really give any opportunity for the committee to be involved in it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the intention is that the risk matrix, which will be attached to the entire report back to the committee for consideration, will include all of the criteria that was considered, and non-conformance of any of the applications is listed under the eligibility criteria, and anybody who doesn't conform to the eligibility criteria is deemed as a non-conforming application. And that risk matrix that is in attachment 2 will be included in the report that goes to the committee.
On that note, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we defer this matter to this sponsorship draft is amended to the necessary points that Councillor Armstrong pointed out that might be changed, and definitely the one that's been added about giving sponsorship to someone who can then go on and sponsor someone else with that same money. So I think there's a bit of more work to be done. So I'd just like to move that we defer this matter to November council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, Councillor Armstrong, are you happy with that recommendation to?
Look, I can't find the risk matrix in the, I don't have a, I've actually progressed to the 21st century and I use an electronic version of the business paper. But it's not included. There's no risk matrix included in the electronic version. There's a scoring matrix, but there's no risk matrix. So,
sorry, a scoring matrix.
So I'm happy to defer that pending delivery of all of the documentation.
Councillor Foreman, if you're happy for that deferral, then that changes the motion. It becomes the motion. Other than that, but
so this though goes out on. So will you amend this before it goes to public exhibition with the changes tonight, or
yes,
does it? So it will be amended with the changes before it goes out tonight, before it goes on public for 28 days, and then it comes back and we revote.
No, it won't. It's being deferred to the November. Okay. Yeah. Just needs a bit more draft.
Recommendation up and it fails, and then we've got nothing.
Okay. All right. I agree.
Okay, so the motion now is to defer.
To the November Hilltops Council ordinary meeting. All right, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Those
Councillor Ingram?
against? Councillor Fitzgerald. Thank you.
No, Councillor Fitzgerald voted against. Councillor Popper, had you voted for the deferral or against the deferral? I'm for.
All right, moving on, we're down to 12.11, 23, 275, the Integrated Water Cycle Management Strategy. Recommendation, receive and note the report. Further report be brought to council once the draft Integrated Water Cycle Management Strategy has been finalised. So this is a report. Okay, so
Move to the question.
thank
Madam Mayor.
you, Councillor Ingram, and the seconder, Councillor Armstrong. All right, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a question about a statement more in regard to the reports coming to council in regard to receive and note the report. It's interesting that all the work that's been done in the back room and all the additional costings have been kept away from the public in view of an SRV being talked about in the community. So that I find that a bit disturbing at the moment. And I can't quote those numbers because they were shown to councillors under confidentiality. A couple of points in regard to this report. The Young Trunk Water Main upgrade, it is proposed. Well, it's not proposed at all. I know the director mentioned it. It hasn't been proposed. That's quite misleading. The Young Trunk Water Main upgrade, it is proposed. And there's been nothing done about that at all. We go down to financial implications, and I'll refer to my learned colleague, Councillor Flannery, to support me here with financial implications are assessed in the IWCM strategy for the period of 21 to 2050, considering both the existing arrangements of separate water and sewer funds for each of BOOROWA, Hardin and Young, as well as the option of combined water and sewer funds. I don't believe there's any such option available to a council to join those funds that have been kept separate for someone to pay for something that is a user pay that they cannot and will never and have never used. So I find the word option, the term, used very loosely. I hope that's okay, Madam Mayor, that terminology. I won't go any further than that. But yeah, there's a couple of things in there that could be construed to be not factual. So we'll just wait and see when the next report comes. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor
just
Fitzgerald.
clarify my financial illiteracy. The phrase triple bottom line impacts, could that be explained, please?
Okay. Through you, Madam Mayor, the reason why this current report does not have any numbers in, and that will become clearer when the final report is, we got some feedback as to two elements of the RWCM strategy that, as was the first draft, was a rough draft, and we had some feedback on we should put into the RWCM to see if it has any impact on the long-term financial plan, any future works that has been identified since the RWCM was commissioned. And there were two items that were identified, and that was the potential that we need to look at the Young water main, the Young trunk main that we have in Young in terms of the connections of services directly to that main. And the second item that was brought forward brought to the attention of the people writing the report was potentially that there would be some works needed. And that was because it was an issue that was raised by the EPA when they did an audit on the site in the beginning of this year. They did that audit as a part of their normal license audits and said we need to start considering. The report was commissioned well before this year, and these are the two items that were brought this year, and we are busy putting that into the models to see what potential impacts that could have on the IWCM as a full strategy, because the point of the strategy, as the report reflects, is to articulate what impacts the IWCM strategy would have on the long-term financial plan of the water and sewer businesses, whether it's separate or as a single water business and a single sewer business. The financial implications, all that is saying is that we will present the option for consideration as to if there would be a single water fund and a single sewer fund, what those impacts would be on a typical residential bill. The triple bottom line is a term that they use to identify, it's not just the financial impacts of a decision, environmental factors, and there's an environmental scoring matrix that is also being added to the evaluation of the various options in the IWCM strategy. And one of the things that was picked up when we looked at the draft report that was available was that the pipeline option for BOOROWA, that they did not consider the environmental assessment and impacts of a pipeline versus using an offsite storage, which was an omission by the person doing the modelling, and that is being identified and added, and hence why there will be a further report brought to council.
Thank you. Councillor Sundry.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to talk against the motion. I don't believe council can receive and make a report that states, as enunciated by Councillor Ingram, that it is proposed that a dedicated trunk main feeding young, the words considered or for council's consideration, but I've seen no plan or evidence of work. My understanding of triple bottom line is it's financial, social and environmental. I think are the three words that I might look for in summary. And likewise, in regard to amalgamating the funds, I don't believe that has been considered by council. So I would like to speak against the motion and believe we should vote against it.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, just a question.
Councillor Armstrong.
In regard to the young trunk water main upgrade, at the time that this was first mentioned, I did actually ask that a comprehensive business case be provided to council to justify those. Now, I don't see any comprehensive business case. Well, I certainly haven't seen any comprehensive business case provided to council yet. So I'm just a bit concerned that here's something that's potentially sneaking with a huge cost, sneaking into the IWCM when council really hasn't had the opportunity to consider the business case for it. That concerns me greatly, because not only will there be a huge construction cost, there'll be ongoing maintenance costs, the question of what happens with the existing line that's there, and the maintenance of that. So I guess until such times as that comprehensive business case is brought back to council, I don't really know why it would need to go in the IWCM, because it's really only, it's not a proposal, it's really only a recommendation at this particular stage by the officer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just for clarity. The IWCM is a 30 and a 50-year strategy. It is a document that looks forward as to an information about what all of potential impacts that could be considered on the water and sewer infrastructure. And this is just identifying there are potential areas. Of course, it hasn't come to council. It will come to council. But looking 30 to 50 years on, what are the potential structures and infrastructure that is needed? These are scenarios. These are modelling and analysis. It's merely just doing scenarios of various potential needs throughout the 20, 30 and 50-year period. It's not to say the council is going to go ahead with this. It's really about a financial modelling as well as the social and environmental impacts of those. That's all this is.
Question.
Okay, thank you.
For clarity or to clarify?
Madam Mayor, just a question.
Yes,
I think the director for that.
question.
But I'm just wondering whether the IWCM has included a what-if component should Golden Fields require council to take ownership of the Back Creek Road reservoir, given the size of the reservoir and its value. that would have a very significant effect on the bottom line for the water fund.
Would that be in the further report?
At this point in time, I'm not aware that that consideration is something that needs to be included.
Then I'd suggest that perhaps it's probably a no different situation than the young trunk water main upgrade then, because that's been discussed now there's been discussions between council and the and Goldenfields, as far as I can remember, back to about the year 2000 in terms of the disputed cost of water that's held in the reservoir.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. All right, we've had discussion. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Dodd. Those against?
Those against?
Councillor
Ingram, Flannery,
Councillor Flannery, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper. Passed.
All right, thank you. We'll turn to 12-23-276, changes to waste management services.
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
Can we move? Can we move it, please?
Well, I'll move the motion with an amendment.
All right, Councillor Flannery. Do we have a seconder?
Well, what's the motion?
Okay.
The amendment would be to remove C from the list and bring the tips listed in C back to council at a later date following workshop and greater consultation. I don't believe there's been any consultation. And in fact, when I attended the Gaylong meeting some months ago, they were ropeable about any suggestion the waste transfer facility was going to be closed. As one resident said, the only thing we have that we can rely on in this village is a tip service. And you come here to tell us you're going to close it.
So, Councillor Flannery, you're moving the motion A, B, C is removed and replaced with further consultation with the community regarding those facilities or all facilities.
Well, I can't speak for the other facilities. I'm speaking for Galen, but yes, that further consultation with the residents of those facilities, and then details come back to council for workshop and further consideration. So item C be deleted, which effectively becomes C, effectively becomes D, following consultation public.
As I read it, this is to go out to public exhibitions. So,
well, no,
we're voting to close them if we.
Yeah. So the motion now has been put forward. If we have a look on the screen, clear consultation with resident facilities.
Yes.
Details come back. That is now the motion.
Come back to council.
And so you would if you were to place you would like to see back in, it would not be a foreshadow motion. You would be proposing an amendment to the motion just proposed by Councillor Flannery to have C placed, replace that motion. So at this point, the motion is as put forward by Councillor Flannery, a further report on the plans to close and consolidate. That's it with the removal of C. That is the motion, given it's been now seconded by Councillor Gibson. If you are proposing C, indeed the recommendation be reintroduced, that would be via amendment for it to become the motion. Just foreshadowing the motion would be in contradiction of this.
I would like to propose an amendment then.
Councillor Dodd, you're moving the amendment.
It be
just brilliant.
Put back in
as it stated. So, councillors, therefore, we need to vote on the amendment to the motion to become the motion. which was the original recommendation. So now, councillors, it's your debate. Now, councillor, is there a second for councillors Dodd reintroduction of the C? Councillor, okay. So that is the amendment to the motion, councillors. You are now debating. You will now debate the amendment. You'll vote on the amendment. Pending that, you will then vote upon the motion. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the motion. And the amendment. So we're actually voting on it.
So the recommendation is as A, receive a note, or B, go out to tender for the curbside collection. Yeah. It's quite clear. The motion put forward by Councillor Flannery is to remove C, and it just becomes a further report in relation to those motions as identified with further consultation. Councillor Dodd has moved an amendment.
So we're voting on Councillor Dodd's
amendment to the motion, which was to reintroduce place plans to close consolidated modified on public exhibition with the D of further report feedback to council. So you were voting on whether or not to accept the amendment to then become the motion, and then you will vote upon the motion.
All right. So, and Councillor Dodd has the right to speak to her amendment.
You'll be talking to C, Councillor Dodd. You'll be talking to that.
So this is not to close it. This is to put it out on public exhibition. That's right, isn't it? And then we get that feedback from the community, and then it will come back to us. And I went to lots of the waste consultations, and people are reluctant to give up their tip facilities, but tip facilities are no longer what we have to do. We have to look at how we save money, and I understand that those communities, the smaller villages, are particularly concerned about having to travel, about losing those facilities, but we need to move forward, and we need to put it out there so we can get comment from those communities and consider it. I can't see any point in putting that off for another month.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Someone speak against the motion?
I'd like to speak against it because the few, I didn't go to all of them, but I went to a few of the village, and they were outraged at the closure of the transfer stations. By and large, the ones I attended, they're not tips. I understand council's issues with tips, and that might come back to council to better manage and regulate where we still have tips in existence. I don't believe anything is wrong with the Geelong transfer station, nor JUGIONG, whilst JUGIONG isn't listed here. They operate appropriately. Ratepayers pay for services. They don't pay to be driven out of town. And you may say that we're going out to consultation, but in adopting this motion, we are effectively making a decision to close these waste transfer facilities or waste facilities, and I don't believe that's going to be well received by residents. I think we need further consultation and consideration of this. I just think it's a shocking decision by council.
Just a point of clarification through the general manager.
Yes, Councillor Piper.
Isn't it the EPA pushing most of these closures?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll pass the director. She's been in direct consultation with the views of the EPA in relation to our waste facilities.
Through you, Madam Mayor, several of those waste facilities have had clean-up notices on them, and particularly the issues around asbestos and how we manage and control how the asbestos happens. And if I take a look at where we've had fires at these tips, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these that have been set alight, and the EPA wants to know what the forward planning is on how we better manage these and contain the risk in terms of operating these facilities. What has been on consultation throughout the process is the distances, and you will note that this is just to put it out on public exhibition for comments. But what we have been speaking about at the consultations and in the online surveys was about how far you're prepared to travel, and we have indicated that a lot of these facilities have been converted to transfer stations purely because the tips are no longer. There can be no more landfills. The EPA has made that clear. We only have one left in the suite, and that is Wright Park, and they are pushing us to close those as well. They're also pushing that we have better management and better oversight and control of all of these facilities. And if we don't have that and don't have a strategy going forward, there's other actions that could be taken. But this is purely to give the community the opportunity to confirm or consider what we are looking at. We have spoken about closing the tips. And in fact, in the Gaylong one, we did mention the usage of that area and how much people actually use that facility. And the standard is, as per the business paper, is we looking at anything that is within a 25-kilometre distance to that site. And it's for better management, but it is for consultation. That's what the paper is asking to do.
Thank you. We've had one speak for it and against. Is there another speaker against it if we're going in that order? Councillor Stadmiller.
I'll speak against it. At the moment each year, I think around Easter, for some reason unknown to men and women, the Harden transfer station just shuts and isn't open, and I don't know why. It's a time when people like to spend that time around the house cleaning up and getting a load in a trailer off to a tip, so that needs rectifying first, and that's one of our larger tips in the three main towns when it comes to size. This week I witnessed a trailer load of what I'd call soiled mattresses leave a pub 20 yards in front of me. I don't know where they went, but I expect that they went out the road somewhere and were dumped. When these smaller places are dumped, and some of the people who can't afford to go to a larger tip or drive that far, or who don't own a trailer, need to dispose of rubbish, we're going to have a huge problem we haven't thought of, which is the roadsides where they're going to dump things, unfortunately, and people will come into our council area and also dump, adding to the problem. There's a fire behind a pub there in Harden this week where more waste was burnt. I think the cost of disposing of waste is already fairly high, and I'm in total agreement with Councillor Flannery. If we rip the heart out of these communities and don't allow them to be able to dump their rubbish at their own site, and they're forced to drive 25 minutes, we're going to have some serious problems. And it's creating two types of citizens based on where you live. If you're from a small village and you've got a small transfer station, it makes it sound like you're not as important. If we're trying to get rid of odour and we're trying to move a tip, why not move some of these tips out to these smaller villages and actually turn a buck that way instead of shutting them? So I'll be voting against this. And if we put it out on exhibition, it basically is putting a nail in the coffin, and it'll be going through and these tips will close and so forth. And nothing's been discussed about the potential loss of jobs at Harden when it comes to the fact that we have local drivers in our local garbage trucks. And if that goes out to a tender council-wide, there's 2 or 3 gentlemen that I know who are going to have to find work, and they may not be suitable to work in another role at council. So alarm bells are ringing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker for?
No, I'm not speaking for, just a comment.
A comment? Thank you, Councillor.
I looked at the report, and then I look at the income, table 1 and table 2, a bit like the last report. What we're paying, but you're putting this out to the community again. Why isn't the backdoor work that's been done in the back room with the numbers that have been given to councils under confidentiality have been explained to the community? And I can't mention specifics, but let's just talk about rural and vacant land holders. It's stated there in the former LGA of Young of a charge now of $49.55, you know. We were presented a briefing paper that blows that figure out of the water several times. So you're going out to the community, so this is our strategy we'd like to use for the management system, but we're not going to tell you just yet just how much it's going to cost you extra. I don't know if that's a good way to be doing business.
And I don't want to steal another councillor's thunder, so I'll let him bring this next matter up in regard to the financial reporting of this matter. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, just clarification.
Yes.
Are we discussing the report now, or are we discussing
only the amendment?
The amendment.
The amendment. That's what we're.
Only the.
We will then debate the report. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. If nobody else is speaking for the amendment, I'll speak for it. Just that I went to, I think with Councillor Dodd, most of those waste talks. I just see this, if it goes out on public exhibition, that is most probably the best way that we will get comment back to us on the community's feeling, that section of the community who didn't come to the discussions that were held. So for it to go on public exhibition, we will hear the community's view, which will then come
lucky
back
if we get
to
two
council.
responses.
Well,
Probably about rubbish, councillor.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. No, I don't think it's funny at all.
We have different sense of humour. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you. Thank you.
Just a comment, I do tend to agree with that. I think once they feel, because I obviously worry about the smaller villages too. I mean, they do deserve to have their waste facilities there, but we have done extensive consultation. Well, they will turn up and listen. They 100% will when they hear this.
They don't get newspapers and go,
Councillor Flannery.
Please.
Thank you, and Councillor Fitzgerald as well. In the code of meeting practice, councillors have the right to speak without interruption. And I might add, on occasions, you can ask one question, that's it. So just cool it, please. Councillor Foreman.
Thank you. I think everybody got my point of, look, I agree. No one wants to see anything closed. We all want everybody to have their tip service, but we have done extensive research. We have gone on to exhibition. I went to a lot of them too. I mean, to consultation. So now we go to public exhibition, and they will have their say. They will come, and they will give us their feedback, guaranteed.
Okay, thank you. We've had 2 for and 2 against, so I will put the amendment to the vote. Can we just have it? Those for it?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Roll. Sorry, so just to remind Councillor Houston, what you're voting for, the original.
No.
Yeah, this is the amendment put forward by Councillor Dodd and seconded by Councillor Foreman to reintroduce C as the motion. The Councillor Rolls. So once again, we had Councillor Foreman. Can we have the scenes again, please? Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, and Councillor Dodd. Those against, Councillor Ingram, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Stadmiller, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Piper. Who did we miss? 6 against. Houston, Councillor Houston. Sorry. Again, so the amendment is lost, and the motion put forward by Councillor Flannery is the motion.
And the motion as it stands, can we just have it up?
Just check that, please.
Oh, no. Okay, thank you. All right. So we're back to as it stands now.
Yes.
Receive and note the report. The B is fine. To tender for curbside collection.
The notation needs to be C and D.
Oh, yes, C and D. Okay, thank you. B, C and D, a further report be brought back to council. Okay, we have it there. Everybody happy?
Just a question. We're voting on the amendment of the motion. Is
No,
that?
we voted on the amendment.
The amendment
And we
was
lost.
lost.
It was lost.
So the motion now
But
stands.
isn't Councillor Flannery's?
I move the motion with amendment.
Yeah. And that was seconded. So the original motion moved as the motion by Councillor Flannery and Councillor Hewson was move the motion, not the recommendation, move the motion as it is there before you on the screen. That was the motion that was moved. Councillor Dodd moved an amendment to introduce the recommendation C, which is the consultation part for the 28 day. That amendment was lost. The motion now to be debated is before you, which includes C, further consultation with residents of facilities and details to come back to council for further consideration.
Okay.
Question.
All right. Councillor Stamler.
Go out to tender for curbside collection of general waste, all areas of Hilltops. So the drivers at Harden, could someone inform me as to what they will be doing if they're not driving a garbage truck?
Through you, Madam Mayor, obviously, once the tender process has been concluded, we will then bring that back to council. The intention is to, in that tender, to include the villages, etc., in the tender process. And as far as the current drivers of the trucks, we have a waste department, and they don't just only drive the truck. They do a lot of other activities within the waste area, and they will continue to be dealing with waste. The driving of the truck is a small component of the duties of the people that are driving the truck at the moment.
Just a follow-up question. Have those drivers been informed that this is a possibility that they will use that role as part of their job?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we need to go out to tender first and assess whether or not we are actually going to be providing curbside collection, and it will be a process that will be followed through the normal industrial channels.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will put it.
Madam,
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
A question or two?
Yeah. Oh, two. All right. Okay.
Indulge me. A question in regards to the B2. I noticed the expanded curbside collection to all residential zone land. Well, does that residential zone land means R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5, or is it only R1? That's the first question. So, because residential has a number of categories. I'll just get a response to that one. Thank you. First off.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just looking to find it in the space in the business paper, but we have articulated that it is the RU. I'm just trying to find it now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the rural, and what we're saying there is it's all towns and villages that will be. And again, this is going to be a separable portion tender. It is really a tender to go out and test the market and say, if you had to service all the villages, which is the smaller towns as well, in terms of providing a service which they don't currently have. One of the outcomes of the consultation was curbside to the smaller villages. So it is across all the towns and villages.
So it's all residential land regardless of classification.
Depending on the lot size. So lot sizes less than 2 hectares will be included in it for consideration. And then routes along between the villages is also included in the tender. This is not to say that we are going to service everybody with curbside collection. This is going out to tender and asking the market what they would charge for that.
What it potentially does is it opens up significant new areas to curbside collection, far greater than is currently provided.
That is correct, and that is the intention, is to see if we do get a tender out, what that would cost to service, because that is something that even in the smaller villages through the consultation process, one of the questions is, would you like or would you consider a curbside collection? And there was a lot of feedback saying, yes, they would like to see curbside. Obviously, as the paper says, if we go out to tender and it's cost prohibitive, we will come back to the community, and if they don't want that service, then they don't want that service. But we need to get a price first to decide no, we don't decide, but to present it as to what that cost would be.
And we have numbers for all those. We can say how many there are.
Are you talking residents?
Well, with the resolution that's before council, or the recommendation is to expand collection to all residential zone land. Do we know the minimum lot size not exceeding 2 hectares? Do we know how many of those there are? How many land parcels are zoned residential that don't exceed 2 hectares in the Hilltops local government area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know the number off the top of my head tonight.
But we do know the number.
Well, it is as identified in the LEP, and I assume we'd get that from the rates notices.
So we don't know the number then.
I don't know it tonight.
Okay, so that's one of the first things. I note that on the following page 135, we actually have some numbers in there, which is coming from existing 2023-24 waste management charges, with a little note, more detailed information can be found in council's revenue policy. But yet when I go to the revenue policy, I don't get the same customer numbers that I see in that matrix there. Should they be the same, or have they been updated in that first matrix?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that at the time of preparing that report, those were the customer numbers that were available for those 3 town areas.
Okay, so it's not as per the revenue policy, because the revenue policy is there and it's got different numbers in it. The other thing, of course, and I'd like to defer to Councillor Fitzgerald if I could, the numbers don't add up. Councillor Fitzgerald might like to check them for me.
Point of order. I have an expertise in mathematics, not in arithmetic.
Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you.
Because they don't add up. They're up by $11,000, and I'm just concerned that if that's out by something as simple as that table there is out by $11,000, how far out are we with other things? I'm having difficulty supporting this recommendation based upon the information that's coming back to me now.
Question,
Councillor
Madam Mayor, along similar lines to Councillor Armstrong's, given the recommendation is to go to tender on curbside collection of general waste, and there's an expansion, presumably any tender documents will include the number of potential roadside collections or curbside collections that they may have to provide a service to as part of the tender documents.
That is correct. We will identify properties, and I think the number is 300 metres from the main road. There's a driveway there that would be considered, and that would be included in the tender. As I said, it would be a tender that would have separable portions, and it can be used to guide whatever decision we make. It's purely just to go out to market to see what, if we did expand the curbside collection, which is something that came through in the consultation, what the cost associated with that would be.
Just a question. So where we're considering closing those, we're not considering, but where it's listed here that the smaller villages.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, it's not part of the motion anymore.
Well, I just want to clarify. So would we assume then that these villages would possibly be getting a curbside collection? So that,
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the villages would be included in the tender process to understand what the costs would be associated with providing a curbside collection in the smaller villages, and it would be up to a lot size of less than 2 hectares as stated in the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor,
yes,
consistent
Councillor.
with the previous question that I asked, so we're asking for tender. What would the length of the tender be, noting the collection of food organics and garden organics by 2030? What's the proposed time frame? Are we looking at a 6-year, 5-year, 6-year time frame?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we are looking at generally you do a 5+1+1 tender arrangement.
So we'd be starting next financial year and it would go through until 2030, which I'm assuming from the wording of that, the requirement for food organics collection becomes legislative as of 2030. Is there a reason for the 2030 date listed on point 1?
Yeah, it is to coincide with the legislation, and we include that in the tender for consideration as part of this whole process.
Okay, thank you. All right, after a fair bit of discussion, I'll put it to the floor.
I might just speak to the motion, Madam Mayor, given I'm the amendment.
Yes, you may.
Look, the deletion of or the amendment to Part C, I think, is sensible, because now we have a motion which is to get a quote with tenders on the cost of providing these services. Council will then be better informed to go out to the community on what it would cost. We can, and when I say community, the villages, we can go out to them and say roadside collection, including any small lots, will be X. You'll then be able to avail yourself of the services. We can then go out to them, have the meetings and bring it back to council for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against?
Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Ingram for. Councillor Foreman for. Councillor, it's
Four.
Four. Councillor Mackie. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Rolls. Councillor Hewson. Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Piper. Councillor Dodd. Those against?
Those against?
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
State Miller. Passed.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to 1213 23277. Roads to recovery. The recommendation, receive and note the report. Got the recommendations.
I move we move to committee, please.
I'll second that.
All right. All those in favour of moving into committee? Okay, thank you.
You want to? Okay.
Yes, well, how about we
Madam Mayor,
maybe go around?
I'll lead off, you don't mind?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Ingham.
Well, I have intend to foreshadow a motion or seek a deferral in regard to some allocation of these funds. Again, it's been brought to my attention a project that we've talked about for a long time that is eligible for some of this funding. And we didn't proceed too well with it. And last time I asked the question, and I'm talking about Rockdale Road. We're talking about intersection work being done and being looked into. We have, for those of you who don't know, it's down that end of town, Rockdale Road. It leads to a new industrial area, and it also leads down to a joint RFS and SES emergency facility. The road has been terrible for years. One business organisation who operates down there is not only recognised statewide, but Australia-wide. They've been very, very good at what they do. But every time they seem to want to do something, they run into a roadblock, but that's for another day. But the problem at the moment we have with Rockdale Road is we can't have B-doubles go up and down there. Staff have told these businesses, and to the point where they won't even let them have a permit to move a B-double up and down there. So how about I'll be seeking to have some of this funding from Roads to Recovery reallocated to bring Rockdale Road up to a standard. Have the intersection done. There's another big industrial project going there right on the corner. And I believe he's under the belief that he has B-double access, but guess what? After what I've read today, was sent by council, he hasn't. So we need, as a matter of urgency probably, to make sure that we allocate some funding to do the work that we spoke about 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and bring Rockdale Road up to a standard where there's industrial organisations can operate. We talk about growth and hilltops and jobs, finances. Here's a section of the Young Industrial Centre, where operators are trying to do the right thing and not having a lot of luck at the moment. That being said, as I said, I will be seeking a reallocation of some of these funds, whether councillors want to debate that tonight and go through that tonight, or with the blessing of the council to defer the matter so staff can speak to me, and if they've got an idea of what sort of money we're talking about to have the works done on the intersection. I'm not too sure we could proceed too far tonight with it, but depending on the responses and how we go, that's my point on the road to recovery funding. There's road to recovery funding there, and there's allocations. I'm not too sure how closely they've been costed. Round figures, that's fair enough. I understand that to get them to us. You know, there's $400,000 down the bottom for Hilltops gravel road reshooting. Well, there's $400,000 I'd grab straight away. Because in the last 2 or 3 years, the allocation gravel reshooting for the former Young LGA it's been spent, but hasn't been spent there. So that really doesn't do much for me saying there's $400,000 there, and I'll talk about that in the next report, I think. So councillors, and any of the councillors might be aware of where Rockdale Road is and the problems we'll have with it. Here's an opportunity, I think, to get some funding to address it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Madam Mayor, just to back Councillor Ingram up there, I know where the road is. The particular construction work on the corner, if everything goes ahead well, it's going to be an income to the council. But my firefighting hat is on now. We in the Hilltops area, and particularly Young, our fire trucks are going to come out that road, and we want them fixed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do also
Councillor
support
Foreman.
going through Rockdale Road. I think it's an important section, and it's an up and coming development area, and it has been on the agenda for a long time. I know I was approached when I first got on council regarding that road, and I assume it's been going on a lot longer than me. So I would support some reallocation.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Question to the director in regard to the defamation at road defamation at the Wombat Street corner. I know that in past years there's been significant speculation that some of that defamation has been due to water main. And my understanding is that there's a rather large thrust block located at that corner because of the acute nature, change of direction of the water main. I'm just wondering whether there's what her understanding of that water main is, and whether she believes there is impact on the road surface because of that water main or the thrust block.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have had a look at the water main, and that does not seem to be the concern on that road. The intention is that we actually put a hot mix on that road, because what we've been doing there is just to try and seal and patch that road, and it's not working. We want to do a more permanent fix there, and that's why we've identified that, because yes, that is in a particular area. The roads that we put forward are all roads that need work on, and that they are outstanding, and we saw this as an opportunity to get this work done. This funding does expire. We have to finalise the funding and spend it by June 2024. Otherwise, we cannot reallocate it. This is the last year of this funding, and we were trying to be proactive and address a lot of known concerns around or the Hilltops area and get those fixed and get the money spent, because we're really keen to get this work done.
That goes in line with everything I just spoke for and asked about. I completely agree. The money needs to be spent, and it needs to be. And the other projects there, there's no doubt they need to be done as well. But I just think we could trim some of those allocations up. And as I said, there's $400,000 you got sitting there. 800,000 for reseals. When the condition report comes back, the report is in on Rockdale Road. There's no need for any more reports. It's sent, it needs to be done. I don't know, have you got any idea of any costings for the intersection on Rockdale Road, Madam Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have actually just finalised the entire Rockdale Road design up to the RFS shed, and we're busy with costings at the moment, so we don't have costings at this point in time. I would like to highlight that in the table, the coloured section there has not been allocated. That is for, we suggested when we get the So those amounts have not been allocated. All we're asking for is to proceed with the uncoloured rows to deal with issues across the network, and the allocation of those, we can certainly take that back and look at the final costings of Rockdale Road and bring it back to council as to how much that is.
And I'd imagine that the final costings for the entire Rockdale Road will be significant. But I would suggest that, from what I'm hearing, the stumbling block at the moment is the intersection. I would suggest that would be the part that would need to be prioritised, and any funding we can source for that would then take a lot of the grief away. I know line of sight's been mentioned, and a few other things in regard to that, but I'm pretty sure we can overcome those little technicalities with some common sense. But the stumbling block seems to be the intersection.
So just for the purpose of this, with the some 1.9 million that is unallocated, inverted commas, would that meet the criteria, particularly just on that intersection? So if we were to bring this back to council,
yeah, it would meet the construction and maintenance of the road.
No, I'm saying is, would $1.9 million be enough to?
Well, I don't have the final costing, but what we can do is through you, Madam Mayor, to the point of the intersection is the area that we need the more, and I'm aware of the heavy vehicle cannot traverse that road. We could focus on that and get the costings for that and bring that back to council, and then identify in that 1.9 million that still remains unallocated. We could say that is how much it's going to be, and that could be the allocation for the remaining money.
Thank you very much.
I might butt in. I'm not keen to see the unallocated funds change, because we've just spent $200,000 of money that should have been spent on gravel road reseals allocated to our truck, to little van to drive around and take photos. So I don't want to see money disappear out again, especially if we get a report highlighting that significant work needs to occur. I would rather see the Chums Lane culvert, which has been like that for 30 years. I don't think it's changed in the 30 years I've been driving over it. Old Temora Road, Young, yes, it needs work. And I'm not too sure about Wagila Road, but if memory serves me correctly, we've already spent significant funds out that way. In fact, I think we spent some of our flood money out Rye Park and Wagila Road. Not saying it doesn't need doing, but I think we've had a reasonable allocation out there. I would suggest that we add the Rockdale Road project to the top list, and we leave the money floating between Chums Lane, Old Temora Road and Wagila Road. Add Rockdale and just put a quantum of money for all those, and then subject to a report in the November council meeting. And I would hope that the costings on Rockdale Road could be added to that list, and we might have a better idea. But noting there are some smaller, I've chosen to deliver the bigger sums of money because they're the ones that can be more easily malleable. The smaller quantum, you either do spend the money or you do nothing, I would think. Being back to Mondrel Road, Wombat Corner rehabilitation. I did look one or two of them up on the internet because I wasn't familiar with them, and some I thought struggled to justify their usage. But given we're in committee, I would suggest that we just add Rockdale Road to the top list and leave the amounts floating there, but we approve the work. We approve it as part of the list.
I'm not sure if we're in committee. I can have a say. I see that the staff have considered those top ones as a priority. Is that right?
Yes.
The ones that really need it, including the Chums Lane. I go over that fairly often. I think that might be about the only timber one left in Hilltops. Am I right in thinking that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I can see how the yellow, if that's a floating area, that gives us room to move for something like Rockdale. I mean, I know where you're coming from, but I personally,
you don't like disagreeing with staff.
Thank you.
Well, that's a positive thing. Yeah.
I thank you for your support with Rockdale Road, Madam Mayor, and I'll make it public that you're supporting Rockdale Road. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
So you didn't.
And also, I support the staff. They have the expertise and the knowledge of what roads are important, and I support them in that way. Yes, so you're right, Councillor Flannery. I am supporting staff, but I can see those as the important ones, and that the yellow ones. That's where we can find that money for the Rockdale Road. I would hate to see those really important roads not have money allocated to them.
So why did we spend 236,000 getting a car to drive around looking at roads if we're then going to take the money back off them?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have recently received the deed for the 7 million, which is the regional and local emergency road repair program. So it's based on the same vein as the 5 million that we've received already. And the government has now handed out another 7 million. So to the point of going with what the car has been driving around, the funding requirements of the 7 million is similar to the 5 million. And we can potentially look at whatever the report says, use that 7 million as well to do roads. And it's just putting it out there. The yellow can be used for Rockdale Road once we've got costing and what the report tells us and what we're proposing in the yellow. And the yellow was subject to that report and to what the recommendations from that report was before we knew about the 7 million. We wanted to use the report to inform those. The reason why we brought the uncoloured bits to here is because they are really urgent and we want to get on with the work. So that is an option that councillors can consider.
Okay, thank you. Has
So
anybody else?
Just a question, Madam Mayor, in relation to Chums Lane Culvert, and I don't disagree that it needs doing at some point in time, but it has quite literally been like in the state that it's been in for 20 odd years. And noting that the work has to be completed by June next year, and we're now at October. I imagine work like this has to go out to tender. Be lucky if we get a quote back by, because I don't think it would be within council's capability to do the work. So we'd be looking at February at best. And noting the director's comments that we've got $7 million coming, do you think we'd actually be able to get the Chums Lane culvert replaced and done by June?
Through you, Madam Mayor, according to the programming scheduling that we have done to bring this paper to council, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions, or will we go to the committee? Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Dodd. Those in favour? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
I'll move the recommendation with an amendment to the table so that Rockdale Road gets included in the list and is part of the general expenditure of funds without being explicit to the area shaded down below. Is added to the top portion with Chums Lane, Temora Road, Wargila Road to be subject to Rockdale Road costings as to whether they drop down to the bottom list or stay on the top.
We have a seconder for the movement of the motion. That is the motion. So let's Rockdale Road to be added to the list, and we need to be more specific there, I think. And the roads that you identified was Chums Lane's Culvert. Was it Old Temora Road, Councillor Flannery?
Chums Lane, Culvert, Old Temora Road, and Wargila Road, and Rockdale to be listed together. So the quantum of money for $1.26 million to be allocated between Chums Lane Culvert, Old Temora Road, Wargila Road and Rockdale Road, subject to a further report at the November council. It could include costings or estimated costings on Rockdale Road. So essentially, I'm adding Rockdale Road to the top list and grouping the $1.26 million together, subject to a report and further costings for council to come back to the November meeting to finalise the decision.
So I'm just going to ask, so you Madam Mayor, just to, for the director, given that the 1.26 million dollars, the figures here before us would be to undertake the work that's addressed in the following pages in relation to that work. So obviously that work would be reduced to cover for Rockdale.
Well, it's actually table 3 says proposed projects for roadworks recovery. So, and the lines I've listed or items I've listed total $1.26 million out of the total of 3.885 million ... I'm grouping Rockdale Road together with those 3 listed items, putting 4 there for an allocation of 1.26. So I suppose I'm just blocking it together as $1.26 million, subject to a report at the November council meeting.
The intent will be that the money could come from them, or proportionally some out of the other items that are listed there.
Subject to a report at the November council meeting. So
yep.
Detail what's exactly going to be done.
Yep, we'll know more. Yep, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to flag, it is on page 142. Chums Lane is in pretty poor condition. It is buses go over that. It's used by local traffic, and garbage trucks also use that road, and it is really failing. We've at times had to reduce it to 1 lane, and yes, while it has been in poor shape for some time, that is something that we really need to get onto. So, the detail of why we've selected those roads is provided in the business paper for consideration.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Director.
Can I just make a comment too?
Thank
Sorry, very quickly with
Councillor
Wargilla Road.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to just ask Councillor Flannery. We've now got C on screen. I just want to ensure that this is the intent, and Councillor Ingram. Oh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor.
What?
I was just going to say, just when I read about Wargilla Road, it sounds like there's a real urgency to fix it. I mean, the words sound like it's unsafe. So I'd hate to see the money taken from Wargilla Road. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie.
I'd like to move an amendment to the amendment. I think this is because I'd like to see it as the original.
Sorry, just okay. So
Well,
right
whatever
now
that
we
has
have
to
the
be.
motion put forward by Councillor Flannery with the same process as before. Councillor Dodd, you're moving the amendment to just be as it was.
As it was with the report on Rockdale Road to come back
With the table unadjusted.
to the
Thank you.
next.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mackie. So now, councillors, you will now debate the amendment.
I'm struggling to see the difference. We want
Well-
Rockdale Road to come back in a report. Rockdale Road be added to the list, Chums Lane, Colbert, Tamora Road, Wargilla Road, subject to report in November. It's not saying take them out, it's saying put Rockdale Road in.
My intention is that
Thank you,
the
Councillor.
report as it is, it means they can start work on those roads, and then the report comes back where we actually have costings for Rockdale Road. I would hate for them for any of those roads to have to miss out because all of a sudden we don't have enough money. I mean, that's the money that's been allocated for them because that's the costings that they've got. And we don't know how much Rockdale Road is going to cost. And I think there is an urgency to getting these roads underway. And we're not allocating all the funds. We're only allocating that part of the funds at the moment. And I think we need to get moving on.
So you're happy to
Thank
support
you.
Rockdale Road with funding from anywhere in the yellow lines, or you're just not supporting Rockdale Road?
I would like to speak against.
Hold on.
I would like to speak against.
I've seen Rockdale Road. I went down there recently. I think Rockdale Road certainly needs to be looked at. Very happy to support it, but I don't want to. So when it comes back in a month, because they're doing work on it now, so they're working on it, we'll have some actual numbers. And I think that's important.
I appreciate
Councillor
I
Flannery.
appreciate, I'm speaking against the amendment because I appreciate the tenor of councillor Dodd's comments. However, when I look at the table, in 2019-20, we underspent the budget by $1 million, 2021 by 600,000, 21-22, 500,000. There's a comment for financial year 22-23, works are ongoing and is anticipated the total amount of funding will be expended, even though we've actually finished that financial year. Last I heard, we're in 23-24. I'm assuming that's just reference to the money has been rolled over. And then I get told everything's so bloody urgent, it's got to be done tomorrow. I mean, the money's been sitting there. $3.8 million is unexpended, and we've got to spend the money tomorrow, and we can't have a decent report. We've got 3 or 4 line items in this report detailing what's got to be done. But we can't get a decent report to this council when we haven't expended 1.8 million. You have got to be kidding. Bring a decent report back to council before we go and spend $1.2 million. Surely that's not too much to ask.
I would hate for there to be money at the end of the year that we haven't spent and that we can't spend because we can't roll it over to
Thank you.
another.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Thank you, councillors. We've had somebody speaking for it. Against. Another 4? Another person want to speak for it?
I've got a question, that's all.
A question. Thank
Question
you,
to Councillor Dodd. Where will the money come from to fund this work on Rockdale Road when the report comes back?
I don't know, because that is for the decision at that time with the information that we have, the money that we have.
So you're not suggesting it's going to come out of those recovery funding?
I don't know.
So it would appear as though
The
you'd
7 million?
be happy for it to be unfunded then. Is that correct or not?
No, but my understanding is there is another $7 million that's coming for the roads. There's this money here that's not allocated. These things seem to change all the time. I don't know where the money is going to come from. I don't know how much it's going to cost.
The director may be able to shed some light with the money for the Rockdale Road. That still can come from the highlighted yellow portions of the one.
It does, yeah. Through you, Madam Mayor, the highlighted portions Rockdale Road would, at the first glance, it would comply with the requirements and guidelines of the funding. So those yellow bits could be used to provide the funding necessary for Rockdale once we know what the costs are.
And then the $7 million could cover that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So,
Sorry,
if there are no more questions or,
I
Councillor
just need to
Foreman.
clarify what I'm doing. So we vote, if this is what we're voting on.
Yeah.
But with Rockdale Road, this is saying that it can come out of the yellow section or the white section?
The yellow section.
Because you need to the yellow section, right? Because we need to complete these works, don't we, in the time frame?
That's the current amendment.
And that's what we're voting on now, because
So
we need to get that work started.
only voting now, just to be very clear, we're only voting for the amendment to reinstate the recommendation with the table as stated. That's the amendment put forward by Councillor Dodd. If the amendment, and so the Rockdale Road is not mentioned within that, although the discussion has been, and it's very clear the intent is, once the costing is known for Rockdale Road, a further report be brought back to November on how the allocation of that yellow portion of the 1.9 be spent. If that amendment fails, we then go to the motion put forward as put forward by Councillor Flannery and seconded by Councillor Ingram, which identifies the consolidation of the three, the Chums Lane, the Altamore Road, Wagalia Road and Rockdale Road, on how to allocate that funding subject to the costing. So further reports still come back in November, but Rockdale Road is noted and it's captured within those other 3 as noted. Is that clear enough, Councillor?
Yeah, can I have a point of clarification on it? That's why I had the trouble with Rockdale Road being mentioned with those other 3 items. That's fine with me, as long as what we've just said, this funding could come out of the yellow zone, even though that's the resolution of council. The amendment we're voting on now for Councillor Dodd is to take Rockdale Road out of the picture.
Well, No, well,
Yeah, that's the amendment.
well, it's
And
not stated.
Can I just ask Councillor Fitzgerald what was wrong there? Because if we vote for Councillor Dodd's amendment, Rockdale Road is not mentioned in this funding. That's completely against what I've been asking council to do. And I know it's a vote of council, but we just have to be very clear on what we're voting on. I don't want you to be confused.
So, yeah, well, thank you, Councillor Ingram.
I actually think I said, with the addition of a report on Rockdale Road, come back to the next council meeting. I'm
Okay, so
sorry.
let's add that to the.
That's different than being included on
That
the
was,
list.
yeah, it is different to being included.
That's
on the list,
exactly
but
right.
I
So you're not
didn't-
really supporting Rockdale
but
Road
I-
on this list.
But I didn't want it to drop out. I wanted it to be the understanding that a report would come back on Rockdale.
A report on Rockdale Road. Listen to that. Bring a report on Rockdale Road to the November meeting.
Madam Mayor, question for Councillor Ingram,
Yes.
if I may, Councillor Ingram.
Stemmer?
What condition, in your opinion, is Rockdale Road? I don't have any clue as to what its current condition is.
As I spoke on the matter earlier on, Rockdale Road isn't in the position to accommodate B double traffic for a start. It's been an industrial area. It's absolutely counterproductive. And also there's some other issues with the road. But the main thing is the intersection, which for the last 7 or 8 years has been talked about being done, and it hasn't been done. Here's an opportunity to put it on a list for some funding. I don't want to get the matter confused or go any longer about it. Thank you.
So bring the report back on Rockdale Road to the, this is your amendment, Councillor Todd. So I'm just trying to assist, to the November 23rd ordinary meeting, to allocate funding from the yellow section of the table. No? Okay.
Because we don't know how much it's going to cost or what.
Yeah.
Suggest that you add that yellow portion. Yes.
Yeah.
So the yellow. will cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it
to come from the yellow section of the
No,
table of table 3 of the report. So then it's now defined, as I understand it correctly, it's now defined that Rockdale Road, subject to a further vote of council, will take the funds from that 1.9, subject to your consideration at the next council meeting, but it is stipulated there in relation to Rockdale Road. And I believe your intent, Councillor Dodd, is to ensure that the roads identified at in the uncoloured can proceed. That's your intent. And now it's been included, the Rockdale Road will get, well, one of the first dibs on that, on the yellow section of 1.9. And that is the amendment being put forward. And so you're voting for the amendment to become the motion, and then you will then vote on that motion again.
Okay, so we have had the discussion. Everybody clear? All right, I will put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Staniela, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd. Those against?
Okay. Those against?
Councillor Flannery and Councillor Armstrong. So
Thank
this
you.
now becomes the motion.
Motion.
And so then open to
So
further
we're-
questions and vote.
We're back to the motion, which is up in front of you.
Question for the director. If Rockdale Road were to cost $1.2 million of the residual funds, would you recommend the work occur in light of the fact of the road funding we've just spent?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if this comes to that we need to include Rockdale Road, certainly we will include what the cost of Rockdale Road is. And hopefully by then we will also have the report of the condition assessment and bring a report to council with regards to providing the rest of the work, which is generic in nature until we get that report from the ORB work that has been undertaken in terms of condition assessment. So whatever is left, if Rockdale Road is 1.2, I don't know what that cost is, then that would go to what is proposed there, but that report will articulate that.
Thank you. All right, I will put there's no more discussion. I will put the motion to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Stedman, Councillor Houston, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd.
Those against? Flannery and
Councillor Flannery.
and Councillor Armstrong.
Passed. Thank you.
Okay,
Madam
thank
Mayor,
you.
I can't believe we've had $1.8 million of funds sitting in pity, and suddenly work becomes urgent. These roads have not been mentioned once in all our capital works programs, and without anything of a report, we go and spend that money. It's absolutely atrocious.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Councillor Flannery. Let's go.
Out of order.
Certainly is. Let's go on to 1214. 23-278, works report. Okay, here we have the recommendation, receive and note the information provided on works completed and works planned. And can I say before anything that it is, looks pretty comprehensive. Thank you. All right.
I'll move it with a question on that note.
Okay, Councillor Ingram, are you
I moved it.
moved and second? Councillor Foreman. There you go, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given that you said it looks quite extensive, I guess staff have resolved the matter of me asking questions about gravel resheeting because none was done, according to the report. The questions I'd asked at the previous two meetings in regard to some of the gravel resheeting still haven't been answered in regard to which business paper was right. At last month's meeting, I pointed out that the September report contradicted the August report in regard to gravel resheeting. I've since been told by reliable sources there could be some confusion in our council about what's gravel patching, maintenance and capital works being resheeting. And I'm not too sure if that's how the mix-ups have been with the reporting of it. But it would appear now that the reporting's changed altogether. I thought we spoke about, and it'll come out next month in QBR, I know, in regard to costings for doing some of this work. I mentioned a meeting with some business people last week and some other ratepayers that came along with them. And they called me to account, basically, and used that word accountability. And I said, well, we try our best as councillors, and they wanted to know how much some of this work was costing. And my answer was, I don't know. I have asked for it several times, for costings to be provided, but I haven't been able to get it. So when I got home, I did a bit of reflecting about it, and I thought, well, they're pretty right. We're here to report back to them and let them know where the finances are going. That's our one main job. And how can I report back as a councillor, or any of us as councillors, if staff can't explain to us the costings of works? Now, there's a lot of areas that covers, and I've said it before, I don't want to know who's shoveling in the holes and who's driving the grader, but I think it's time that councillors were informed of the costs of these works. So I look forward to the QBR coming out to maybe try and explain where we're up to, specifically gravel resheeting budget, given that we've got a program there with some roads being completed already. So it'll be of great interest, especially to myself, to get the confirmed lengths of work that was gravel resheeted, because in August, Flackney Creek Road had 4.7 k's allocated, and in September it only had 1 kilometre. It had changed back to grading. Councillors might have missed my point. Grading and road maintenance is very separate from gravel resheeting, which is a capital item, which we allocate a budget for. The rest is maintenance. So for those two different matters to be reported separately, then in together, they're not at all. As councillors, we need to be concerned about where the allocated budget's going. So we'll give it one more try and wait till next month to the QBR. Those financial figures and costings are provided to councillors with the length of gravel resheeting, not maintenance and all wrapped up into 50 pages of confusion, just quite simple. Of where the gravel resheeting was done, length of the gravel resheeting and the cost. And the QBR should tell us where our budget is. ongoing. And we spoke about this before, being reported monthly, so we could keep track of that. So it didn't get lost in the wilderness. So I'd really appreciate if that could be taken. And on the other hand, I don't know if anyone else has been driving around our entrances lately. I drove out Millvale Road entrance a fortnight ago and was really disappointed. There was half a job. But true to what I do every council meeting, I drove out this morning when I got back from Yass, after coming through Harden and noticing just how good it looked. There's some work coming into Young this way, and down the Millvale Road I go. And while there's a little bit more to do, wow, what an improvement. It makes you feel proud driving into the town instead of looking at straight ahead because you don't want to look at the sides of the road. So congratulations to the outdoor staff who have started to take care of that stretch of road and now where the entrances to Young. It's much appreciated by the entire community. And I've already had feedback before I got here tonight about it. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ingram. Any other
question, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I thank the director for her attention to Allendale Road. But I'm just wondering why good work wasn't continued across the railway line onto Henry's Road. I'm told it hasn't seen a grader for 3 years. Allendale Road and Henry's Road would be less than 300 metres apart. Can we get some advice as when Henry's Road might see the blade of a grader?
I'll take that on notice, Councillor Armstrong, and I'll probably bring it back.
Contact you again. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Questions, Madam Mayor. I raised at the last council meeting, Copang Road, from residents hasn't been graded for a number of years. I think it's over 5. I haven't seen a grader out there, and I don't see it listed on the list here. So it could some homework be done on it. I think they said 1 grade in 5 years would be appreciated.
Okay.
And it also would need reasonable remediation, I understand. I won't anymore.
That would be illegal. That would road reserves.
Springfield Road at Boorowa, I can't see listed anywhere. Springvale Road I saw. And a few other questions. There's a budget line item for tree replanting in Harden, and I don't see it listed on the schedule of works anywhere. No, Springfield. I also note the schedule of works is fairly generic in nature. It lists line marking for junior and senior rugby league, which I think that season's finished. Whilst I appreciate that we have a list of ongoing maintenance, I think if the list, as I have raised before, could be pertinent to the months of the year and what's actually occurring rather than just a general ledger of work that's undertaken on a yearly basis, because the phone calls I get is, why is this being done? Why isn't that being done? And I look at my schedule of works and think, well, I'm pretty sure they're not line marking junior and senior rugby league. So if the schedule of works could pertain to what's happening in the month ahead, please. There was one other question. I can't find at the moment, one other list item. I've had thank yous for the work done on Linden Road, consistent with Councillor Ingram's comments. I get positive and negative feedback. But Linden Road, that was much appreciated, the work that's done there. I'm sorry, I'll have to come back. There was another question.
Another question then, Madam Mayor, in the interim.
Yes, Councillor.
This relates to the bottom of page 158. Something that's very near and dear to me, and that's water meter renewals. Water meter renewals. Now, I'm just a little bit concerned here because none of this adds up. And what that I mean that we've got 2,479. They call me big-hearted Greg in the real world. So I'm going to round up to 2,500. So we've got 2,500 metres to be replaced in the current financial year. I thank the director for that information. I note that there are 1,369 at Young 943, in excess of 50%, in fact, at Harden, 50% of the total meters at Harden, and 167 at BOOROWA. So there's a very large job at Harden, replacing 50% of the water meters, a slightly larger job at Young, replacing 1,369 out of 4,500. But I'm just a bit perplexed because when I went back to the budget, I noted that last year no water meters were replaced at Young because 100% of the budget was knocked out of the capital works program back in March in the QBR. So we couldn't have replaced any because there was no budget and there was no costs at that stage. There were some expenses at BOOROWA and Harden, about $4,000 left, but there was no mention of rolling those over or deferring the works. Now, I just went and had a little bit of a look at the long-term financial plan capital report by program that was provided to council for the proposed 2023-24 budget. And I note that that there is $58,973 provided to replace meters at Young, 15,000. I'm going to round this, 15,000 for BOOROWA, and the same amount, 15,000 for Harden. So I'm just a bit concerned that we've got 58K for Young and potentially 116K because the 57K from last year was proposed to be rolled forward. So potentially 116K to replace 1,349 metres, but yet we're going to replace 943 metres at Harden for $15,000. So I can't work out how we can replace water meters at Harden for $15 a unit, and at Young it's going to cost 10 times that. I guess the question, 25% of the year's gone and only 1% of the water meters have been due for replacement have been replaced. Will the target be achieved? That is 100% of that. And how can it be achieved within budget, given that the replacement costs at Young are 10 times greater than the replacement costs at Harden, if you look at the budget? I'm happy to receive an answer.
Madam Mayor, I will take that on notice. I'll have a look at those numbers and bring it back.
Look, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that's not satisfactory. This is a budget that's been put forward by the director. This is a works that are reported in a works report by the director, and this is a question that goes directly to those two things. I just find it incredible that I can ask a question that to me seems to be a pretty simple answer, that it's the wrong amount of money voted there, it's the wrong number of figures, wrong number of meters, but yet it's taken on notice.
Well, thank you, Councillor Armstrong, but I think that
can I get a response in writing, please?
The director has every right to take it on notice,
Yep.
and
Response in writing.
also once she has decided that, or it is decided, then it has to be accepted. And certainly, I think in writing. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Couple of questions,
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Stadmiller and Councillor Ingram, did I notice your Councillor Stadmiller?
Sorry, Councillor Ingram can go first if he wants to follow there.
No, just a comment. I'll keep it.
The Bora shade sale, Bora swimming pool shade sale, I've been contacted by a resident there. It's apparently in disrepair and they are making no headway by calling the 1300 number to get that fixed. I expect Bora is going to open in the first week of November, which takes me to the Harden pool opening. It looks like there's a lot of work still going on there. So can we get a date as to when that may open and if there's any hold-ups at JUGIONG as well, before I ask a couple more questions?
Okay.
Push it off and on. All right. The Harden swimming pool, through you, Madam Mayor, that works is nearing completion, and it is anticipated that the swimming pools will be open, the JUGIONG and Harden swimming pool on the 14th of November.
Newson Park, I was advised by a local business owner that the automatic lights that turn on when you go to the toilets haven't been working for upwards of 6 months based on their estimation. So could someone look at those? I'd just like to bring to council's attention that Tim Doolin Oval, which is named after a former employee of the Hardenshire Council, was not ready for the first game of cricket. Again, that needs to be looked at on an ongoing basis. I understand there may have been a council staff picnic, but maybe they could have conducted that work earlier in the week and had that ready for the opening of the first game. On a good note, Roberts Park is looking good for touch football, and I'd like to commend council for getting the work done at the intersection of Jalambi and BOOROWA Road on the railings there that were hanging precariously mid-air, which have now been cemented into the ground to make that much safer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ingram, did you?
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Sundry.
question for the director regarding intersections that have long been mown for and my understanding is bushfire funds have been used to mow the verges of road intersections. I haven't noticed any significant road intersection mowing, and I refer specifically to Cunningar and Burley Griffin Way, but there are a number of road intersections where, having had a number of years of good weather, good growing conditions, we've got significant growth, although it's been dry recently. They present a significant fire hazard. Could the director also advise? I note Campbellfields Road, unbeknownst to many, was identified as a fire break, and last year I think I saw an excavator mowing it, which I couldn't think of a bigger waste of money. But we mowed it with an excavator. It was burnt last year leading into the fire season. There's been no such. It was mown this year in the middle of winter. Again, I don't know why we were mowing it in a non-fire danger time of the year, but noting that it is a somehow it's been identified as a fire break. Lucky those who live at BOOROWA because they've got a fire break. I haven't noticed any other fire breaks elsewhere around the Shire. Is the director aware of what hazard reduction is going to occur along Campbellfields Lane this year, or is that just the purview of the local fire control? What happens there?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've just received from the RFS the hazard reduction schedule. Well, they give us a map and they tell us where they want it mowed. Campbellfields is on it. It's basically the same program as last year. And they've advised us we've just received the deed, so we will be scheduling that work.
The road intersections, can we be advised as to what funding's available to deal with road intersections?
I'll once we have finalised the deed and looked at the roads, we will come back to council with that.
Well, I would think the way the season's progressing to decide it November, maybe a bit late, I'd assume that work might have to occur with some urgency, given the fire conditions.
All right.
There was another question relating to Gaylong, and the Gaylong minutes didn't seem to make it from the previous month. The previous Gaylong minutes, I was advised, so there was a Progress Association meeting on the 17th of the 8th. I was advised the minutes were sent to council. They didn't appear in the September, nor have they appeared in this council meeting minutes. Problems identified at Gaylong have been Ben Street. There's a significant pothole that's had council railing around it for over 6 months. I believe a water meter or water pipe may have blown out there, and it's a hole that's about a metre deep and about as big as a car bonnet round. Seamus Street, significant potholes. Ryan Street, there are issues there. Village Hall, neither doors will stay shut. In significant winds, the local residents have to go in and close them. And that has been the case for a number of months. So I'd like to make the director aware of those issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sundry. Okay, put it to the floor to receive and note report. Those in favour?
All councillors but one. Those against?
Against?
Councillor Ingram.
Councillor
Against.
Ingram. Thank you. Okay, we've got correspondence for information. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Foreman. There are no queries. I'll put to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay. 12:16, the action summary report.
Move with questions.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Councillor Flannery.
Yes, item on page 163, the Kruger Health and Wellness Building. When are we likely to see a report on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, myself and the Director of Corporate and Community actually did a site visit out there. So we're hoping to get a report either to November or December on the way forward.
Thank you. So I'll write November, December down in my little book. I refer Councillor Fitzgerald to the item listed Jack McCarthy Bridge and the plaque details, and it says to be advised. Has there been any follow-up on the reinstallation of a plaque on Jack McCarthy Bridge?
Not that I'm aware of, although the director may be able to get more information on that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've been in contact with the family trying to get a template for the plaque. The plaque washed away in a storm, and we are still trying to source the thing so that we can have a new one made.
Okay, well, I've been contacted by a family member since the last meeting, and I do have further details, so I'm happy to provide those to you. But they, at that stage, when I was last contacted, they hadn't heard from council, so I'm assuming you contacted them recently.
Yeah, I'm happy to receive the information you may have, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor.
I'm still none the wiser about the answer to the question I asked regarding the 419,000. It's detailed on page 166, and then the answer is there was no overspending on the Transport for New South Wales project. Costs incurred in the material and contracts was 1.407... and these were used as stated. Transport for New South Wales increased material costs. So it was listed in the QBR as 419,000 expended over the original contract, but then this answer is saying it wasn't. So could you, Director, please enlighten me as to how it made the QBR, but then we didn't overspend?
The totals listed there add up to the cost of the materials of 1,407,827, and that includes the 419,195.
In the QBR, which went back to last year, it was listed as, and I'll use the word advisedly, an overspend of 419,000. I've been asked how we managed to overspend a contract that we would have quoted on.
There was no overspend on that contract.
But I asked for a reinstatement in the November council meeting of the details of the December 2022 QBR, please, so we can more fully discuss it.
Okay.
In relation, and I asked the director, in relation to the last document, but specifically plan works, Gaylong Road, Cunningar Road intersection reconstruction. And I asked previously, and I believe it was at the August council meeting, where the money was coming from. And I was advised the council voted Roads to Recovery Regional Roads Block Grant. The work that I see occurring on Cunningar Road doesn't match my recollection of any reallocation of Roads to Recovery or Regional Roads Block Grant. Could we please have a report in the November meeting of the detail, the costing on the Gaylong Road, Cunningar Road intersection reconstruction, and including the vote of council to allocate those funds?
Okay.
Is that a yes or a no? Or
I didn't hear anything back.
Just
23-218, resolution 23-218. 1218, bottom of page 165. Village water supplies. I'm just wondering when the general manager will be providing the legal position in regard to that right of access.
Both of those questions are passed to the Director of Infrastructure.
Okay, when will the report come back to council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have, we're in the process of getting the legal advice as requested by the resolution of council, and we have gone out to several consultants to give us a price on what the village, that body of work is going to cost, and we're busy evaluating those tenders that have come back.
Thank you. I do note that Bridbury's not immune to drought, and when you're that far away from a reliable water supply, anything is better than nothing.
okay, thank you. So we look forward to the report.
Madam Mayor, could I get a response from the director on the regional road? The last question I asked, is the director happy for that information to come back to the November council meeting?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will bring a report back. It was a resolution of council to use the road to recovery. I'll add that to the report.
Yes,
Okay.
that's I'd like the copy of a resolution costing and whether that matches the work that's being done.
All right, thank you. Okay, no further discussion. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Questions with notice will be dealt in confidential, and we have 14.1 notice of motion. Councillor Stadmiller. Okay, you're the mover. And do we have a second for this motion?
Anyone can feel free to jump in at any time. This is designed to ensure that.
Sorry, Councillor Stabler,
Yep.
We need a second.
We do need a second before it's debated.
All right,
Thank
okay.
you, Councillor
Councillor Foreman, second.
Thank you for indulging me. This is designed to allow communities who have spent up to 100 years investing in properties, buildings, and so forth within that community, whether it be Boorowa, Young, Harden, any of the villages, from not having a property sold and then that money going into the ether or a general fund and disappearing. When it comes to Harden at the moment, I'm copping an incredible amount of heat regarding the play equipment at Coddington Park. Councillor Flannery may be the same. It was referred to on Facebook this week as dolls equipment or something along that line, that it would be big enough and suitable enough for dolls to play with, not children, which emphasises the displeasure that the locals have with what has been provided. So if this was to be adopted in any of the towns and villages that we have, at least money could be spent explicitly back on needs that are crying out for funds. And I can tell you now, Coddington Park and the play equipment down there is crying out for some funding. So I'll put this up in front of councillors and you can vote as you please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Do we have anybody speaking against it?
Not so much
Ingram?
speaking against it. I'd vote for it if you took out A, B, C and D. E, I completely agree with you, Councillor Stadmiller. wherever a property is sold, that's where the money should be reinvested. So I do agree 100% there.
Okay, thank you.
I would
Councillor Flannery.
support Councillor Stabmiller on E. I think the notion that you get 75% of the population on some poll, it's just, that's not how any institution, government, state, federal or local council institution can operate.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Anything? I'll put it to vote.
Can I just have a quick right of reply?
Yes, you have the right to reply.
I'm happy to get something up. So if someone wants to move an amendment of E.
I'm happy to move an amendment to the motion, and that amendment is take A, B, C, and D out and leave E. All money from the sale of assets is to be spent. Help me out with the wording here.
I think that all money from the sale of that I think it would be the sale of assets broadly. If I'm hearing you right, any assets to be sold from the previous council areas to be
LGAs,
spent in the area. I think that would all money from the sale of that.
Shouldn't this be a new motion, new notice of motion? If this one fails, there's nothing stopping Councillor Stadmiller from coming back at next month's meeting with a notice of motion framed along the lines that Councillors Ingram and Flannery have spoken about. And that saves all the confusion of having to rework it here and now.
It does.
Right.
Are you wishing to save all the confusion after the confusion we've had tonight, Councillor Armstrong?
No, it's just saving. It sounds.
There's not your end, but there has been around the table.
You're withdrawing.
You're withdrawing the motion?
Yep.
No, it sounds sensible. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. All right, I will put the motion to the vote. Those in favour?
Councillor Stadmiller,
Those against?
all others.
It's lost.
And Councillor Armstrong's quotes are duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we'll move into confidential matters. Can I have someone
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Dodd. Okay. Those in favour? Unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor. In a confidential report 15.223/2282, request of information was provided. In 15.3-23/283, encroachment issue reserve 17017 JUGIONG Central Cemetery. That was as is, wasn't it? The recommendation, the resolution was authorise council to seek concurrence and approval from the Department of Planning and Environment, Crown Lands, to negotiate the acquisition agreement or otherwise for the said reserve with the adjoining owners. B, authorise the closure of the areas of the road reserve to Renwick and Saban Streets, JUGIONG, to rectify the area of encroachment. And C, authorise the General Manager to commence direct negotiations with the owner of that land. 15.4 -23/284 BOOROWA Lawn Cemetery Reservation. Council resolved to adhere to the current policy and proceed with the revocation of the two interment reservations, and B, conduct a review of cemetery policies and bring a further report to council with the aim of harmonising the policies across Hilltops. And 15.5-23/285, addition of Lot 1, Section 50, DP 758139 into Reserve 54441 for a recreation reserve. Council resolved that A, it attests that it has considered the native title manager advice in relation to the addition of the said lot. B, approve the addition of the said lot known as BOOROWA Recreation Reserve. C, request approval from the Minister administering the Crown Lands Management Act 2016 to approve the addition of the said lot being, I'll repeat it one more time, Lot 1, Section 50 DP 758139 into Reserve 54441 known as BOOROWA Recreation Reserve, and D, confirms that the land contained in Lot 1, Section 50 DP 758139, once added to the reserve, will be classified as community land and categorised as general community use. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, and thank you, councillors. I'll close the meeting at 8:55. Pardon me. 8:55. It's almost 9. Okay, and thank you for your attendance and for your work. Thank you.